Chronicles of the Stellar Mecha War. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 576 Radio Telescope. Lin Fan was awakened by the ringing of the phone. She jumped up from the sofa and rushed out without thinking. She ran to the information room in one breath. The screen was calm. All the messy guesses in her mind did not come true. What's going on? Lin Fan leaned on the back of ZHU Kunjin's chair and took 2 breaths. When she looked up, it was just past 1 in the morning. Wu Yusen handed her a bottle of water from the side. It's not clear yet. It's just that an abnormal signal was captured. The main control thinks it may not be good, so you are asked to be alert. Lin Fan was not thirsty, but Wu Yusen handed it to her, so she took it, opened it and drank 2 sips. Abnormal signal? All the satellites have fallen. How can we still capture it? She looked up at the big screen. Many pictures showed that the logistics were cleaning up the ground. The scattered debris was hit by artillery fire, and the glory in front of her could no longer be seen. The relatively intact ones were basically thrown down by her. On the other hand, there were not many debris on the ground in the western hemisphere. It looked like there were only a few scattered ones. Old P and the others are really quick. Lin Fan muttered. What motivated them this time? They are working so hard. These foreigners are probably used to the 8-hour weekend, so they don't seem to be very nervous at this special moment. It took a long time to clean up the remains of the big spider. When she went to destroy the transmitter, she accidentally saw that the spider corpse was still there on the split screen of Hua province. Why are they so quick this time? It must be a trick. Lin Fan's eyes rolled, and she was about to ask Wu Yusen, but he was vague. Although the satellites are gone, isn't the World Tree Network still there? There are also some receiving devices on the ground, such as a giant radio telescope. It's just that it's not an optical telescope, and the intuitive effect is not as good as a telescope in space. Everyone unanimously decided not to let Lin Fan know about the energy cannon, especially on the eve of the battle, for fear of affecting her condition. Lin Fan remembered that she had seen a photo model at the observatory before, and responded, "Oh, I remember, the boss has a pot. I was thinking, there are so many satellites in the sky, can these big things be used? I didn't expect that it would be used not long after. So, some things really can't be overthought, isn't this? Should she really check the crow brain? But, I remember that those pots don't seem to have cameras, right? Are they really telescopes?" Lin Fan asked in time, after extracting the important words from a bunch of messy thoughts. It's just a figurative way of saying it. Radio telescopes are actually signal receiving devices. They were first put into use during the war to monitor the movements of enemy missiles and issue alarms in time. It sounds great, but how can such a smooth pot detect something that can't be seen clearly, such as the trajectory? Lin Fan was puzzled. To put it simply, its pot surface is the antenna, which uses the method of receiving and receiving radio waves to confirm the position and trajectory of flying objects. Oh. Lin Fan nodded silently and listened to the general idea. She wanted to ask where the radio waves came from and how they were received. After thinking about it, I decided to forget it. It sounds like a complicated question, so I shouldn't delve into it. These radio telescopes can receive weak electromagnetic waves emitted by various substances and celestial bodies to locate and identify celestial bodies. The larger the area of the dish, the farther the distance can be detected. I can't remember the specific data, but it seems that the big dish of RG family is said to be able to detect the distance outside the Milky Way. It is said. Is it so powerful? Lin Fan was surprised. She still remembered what ZHU Kunjin told her about the Kuiper Belt. It took the telescope of country P 10 years to fly there, and that was only the edge of the solar system. We surpassed it with just 1 dish. It's really powerful. But this technology seems to be more susceptible to interference from FM radio, television, mobile phones and other radio data. So most of them are built in the mountains. It seems that in recent years, we have joined forces with some G families to build a radio array with hundreds of large pots placed side by side. hoping to continue exploring the mysteries of deep space. Now I don't know if it was destroyed by this attack. I didn't see the array in the area I was involved in. Lin Fan recalled, maybe it escaped. Wu Yusen shook his head. I don't know. The people in the space agency know this best. You have to ask them. Anyway, aren't all the space telescopes gone now? The people in the space agency have transferred the radio telescopes to use, and they can't take care of the Milky Way, so let's just look at what's in front of us first. So what have you detected now? Lin Fan looked at the big screen without real-time images, and he was really a little uncomfortable. 5 flying objects parked near the low Earth orbit outside Lansing, larger than the previous advanced ships. Lin Fan looked at Wu Yusen nervously when he heard this. The advanced ships are already very difficult to deal with. Whether it is the ship itself or the monsters inside, it makes people worry. Now there are 5 spaceships that are even bigger than it. Lin Fan couldn't tell what she felt in her heart. She instinctively rejected it. These things caused the satellite to fall down before. Wu Yusen was also very unhappy and said hatefully, originally they were hanging outside the low Earth orbit, and now the radio telescope has detected that they are moving. Moving? Lin Fan's scalp tingled. 5 at a time. Yes, 5 at a time. Approaching Lansing. Wu Yusen looked helpless. I don't know what tricks they're up to, but it's definitely not a good thing. Their speed is not very fast now, a bit like the cruising speed of a space shuttle, but who knows what will happen next. That's why I pulled you up. Speaking of emergency response speed, only Xingqian and Apollo on Lansing are the first to bear the brunt. On the countryside, Apollo is also on standby. Lin Fan scratched his forehead and asked irritably, how was the loss in the last wave? Was it big? Not bad. With the help of the 2 of you, and later the ground firepower also supported, it was basically under control. Wu Yusen saw that Lin Fan was a little impatient, and comforted him. There were no casualties, and the infrastructure was slightly damaged, which is much better than we imagined. If there were no 2 mechas rushing in the front, and if there was no global fire from behind, the satellites falling from the sky alone would be enough to smash them. It's not just the buildings that are destroyed, but also the hearts of the people. Although the current situation is not very good, at least they have held on, and have not lost. In addition, the previous wave of fire has made many people vent their anger. The revengeful mood against Gro has also become more intense. From the perspective of momentum, it's a good thing. Now, it's past midnight. The time to open the barrier has shortened again. As long as they hold on, once the female clown's barrier is opened, their safety will be guaranteed. 6 days. There are still 6 days. I feel dizzy every time I look up information. After searching for a long time, I can only extract 1 or 2 sentences that can be used. The radio telescope is the big pot with a diameter of 500 meters. You know it, right? There are fixed ones, some that can move, and some that are not circular. The text does not go into detail. As for the detection distance of the big pot, I found out that it is 7 billion light years. Is it that far? I have my doubts, but this is a novel after all. If there are some errors in this regard, just treat it as the needs of the novel. Hahaha. Mainly because I'm lazy. I don't want to check it. Chapter 577 Vicious. On the dark sea, a huge patrol ship was quietly breaking through the waves. When the satellite fell, they could only watch from afar in a safe area. Watching the spacecraft that gathered decades of wisdom of all mankind, burning and falling into the sea. The flames lit up the sea, splashed huge water, and then disappeared into the darkness little by little. Everyone on the ship felt a kind of sadness. A long row of fireballs looked like an enlarged version of waterfall fireworks. One by one, they brought modern human science and technology civilization to the bottom of the sea. Because the falling area was the sea, they did not need to open fire. Compared with the vigorous confrontation on land, the sea surface can be said to be quiet and desolate. After all the satellites disappeared, the ships on the sea surface still had to patrol everywhere. They dispersed to respond to emergencies on the sea surface. After receiving the news that the spaceship was approaching, the captain notified all personnel to be on first level combat readiness. On the sea, the moonlight was not bright enough. The small ship advanced in the vast ocean. Unknowingly, the calm sea surface was disturbed. The fish were thrashing around. At first, there were only a few of them, but later, the noise was so loud that the observers on the ship could not ignore it. The captain soon received a notice from the first mate. "Captain, you'd better come and take a look. There's something wrong with the water." When the captain rushed to the edge of the ship, the seawater seemed to be boiling. Countless fish were flopping on the sea surface, and many of them jumped high. "What's going on?" He frowned and looked deeply for a few times, then rushed to the control tower. "Has the seawater temperature risen?" "No, the temperature is normal." The first mate chased after him, but the sonar detected abnormal fluctuations. The captain paused, looked back at the first mate, and continued to move forward. It shouldn't be an underwater weapon at this time. Could it be seismic waves? No seismic waves were detected, the first mate said again, but there were obviously ultrasonic waves of unknown origin in the sea. It should be these ultrasonic waves that cause the fish in the sea to riot. Animals have a wider range of sound waves than humans, so they can predict danger in advance. Ultrasonic waves. The captain frowned. Could it be Gro's backup plan? After finding out the frequency, the captain breathed a sigh of relief. But even if it was harmless to humans, he didn't dare to take it lightly. The frequency was decreasing at a steady rate. If it continued like this, sooner or later they would be like these schools of fish, unable to find a place to rest. Besides, the marine environment is an important part of the Langsing ecosystem. If all the fish died, it would be another form of destruction. The captain quickly contacted several other ships and found that everyone had encountered similar problems. He didn't dare to delay and contacted the main control directly. "Ultrasound?" Lin Fan looked at the lively sea surface and didn't understand it very well. Her understanding of ultrasound was the small machine for washing glasses in the optical shop. "Is this thing very harmful?" She looked at the people in the information room who were obviously panicking and asked Wu Yusen without any concern. "The sound waves we come into contact with in daily life can be considered harmless waves, so you can't feel them. In fact, sound waves can also be used as weapons." Wu Yusen knew more than Lin Fan and frowned with gritted teeth. "So Gro's plan is to attack with sound waves." Lin Fan still didn't quite understand. Can sound be used as a weapon? She suddenly remembered the roaring noise of square dancing in the park, which made people's brains ache every day. She seemed to understand a little. "Are they trying to make us die?" "Yes. There is a kind of particularly shrill sound, which is unbearable to listen to for a long time." Wu Yusen looked at the silly girl's innocent face and couldn't say anything harsh, so he said with a sigh, "Let me explain it to you briefly. When something vibrates, it will generate waves in the medium it propagates, and that's the sound wave. The unit of the frequency of sound wave vibration is hertz. But the sound wave range that humans can hear is only between 20 Hz and 20,000 Hz. We can't hear anything below or beyond this range. Animals are usually more alert than us because their hearing range is wider than ours, and they can hear ultrasound that we can't hear. The resonance caused by long-term and continuous fixed frequency sound waves can cause substantial damage to different substances, and it's just the kind of noise you think of that causes mental damage to people. The essence of sound wave damage is resonance. For example, Lin Fan still didn't understand. For example, earthquakes are the waves generated by the movement of the Earth's crust that are transmitted to the ground and resonate with the surface buildings, resulting in serious consequences. John Woo said seriously. "There are also people who speak into a glass, and at a certain frequency, the glass will shatter. Have you seen it on TV?" Lin Fan nodded. "This is also resonance. Also, shouting on a snowy mountain can cause an avalanche, which is also a resonance effect. A group of people running at the same pace can reach a certain frequency and shake the bridge." Lin Fan kept nodding her head. These were all real examples she had seen on the news. "So Gro is here to destroy infrastructure this time?" she asked. "I may not have made it clear. Everything has a resonance frequency that can lead to its destruction." Wu Yusen sighed. "Including humans." Lin Fan's eyes suddenly widened. "Look at these fish in the sea. They must be in such pain because the frequency is endangering them. In the future, more and more animals will be affected. Will people also break like glass?" Lin Fan's face was full of disbelief. Wu Yusen patted her shoulder to comfort her. "Don't worry, it's not that easy. Animals have complex structures such as bones and internal organs, and their density is different, so the resonance frequency is also different. Moreover, the frequency that can harm the human body is already very low. The scene you imagine is not likely to happen. It is not easy, but it is relative. Even if a person doesn't break like a glass, just imagine that if the frequency of bone resonance is reached, the bones of the whole body will vibrate. Suppose such resonance does not cause substantial organ damage to a person, but the bones keep vibrating like a mobile phone. The feeling is terrible. What's more, it is impossible that there is no substantial damage. Moreover, there are countless delicate internal organs in the human body. Usually, a punch or a fall can put you in the hospital for a long time. Not to mention this kind of continuous vibration. Lin Fan knew that Wu Yusen's words were to comfort her. If Gro really had this idea, it would be a ruthless move to kill all at once. The sound waves will cause resonances on various seabeds, ground, snow-capped mountains, and bays, and natural disasters will come first. Then, the creatures that survive this large-scale disaster will have to accept the next wave of damage from their own resonance. Vicious. Vicious. Lin Fan rarely has particularly strong emotions because of her own emotional problems. But at this moment, she really wanted to get into Gro and poke the bastard who came up with this idea to pieces. This is a planet. How could they? How dare they? Exclamation mark. Send me the location. Lin Fan rushed out with red eyes. After a while, Xingqian's figure appeared on the big screen and flew high into the sky. The writing of the sound wave is not very rigorous, and the poor student has already collapsed after looking up the information. Everyone, take a look at the meaning. Chapter 578 Landing Location. Before Xingqian rushed into the clouds, she passed by several reconnaissance planes. The ground had issued an air reconnaissance order earlier. However, Xingqian arrived much faster than them. After penetrating the thick clouds, the sky in the stratosphere was also dark. On the endless black sky, the target she was looking for was not conspicuous. Even with Xingqian's good eyes, she could not see the location of the invading target at a glance. Fortunately, she followed the positioning of the telescope, so it didn't make much difference whether she could see it or not. Lin Fan didn't know how much intentional it was that Gro chose to act in the middle of the night almost every time. Was it because he knew that the Langsing people had to rest at night and were least defensive at midnight? Or was it because the vision was not good at night? Or maybe it was both. But think about it again. It was daytime in the western hemisphere opposite Langsing, and it was said that Country P was facing the same situation as them. Think about it again. They were also attacked during the day. Lin Fan felt that the time might just be a coincidence. The altitude of the stratosphere is much higher than the troposphere below the clouds. The airflow here is stable and the air is thin, so it is suitable for aircraft to fly level. It didn't take Lin Fan long to see what she was looking for in the pitch black night. From a distance, it looked like tender beef and a bit like Leo P's starfish building. She subconsciously glanced at the distance marked on the eyepiece and felt that the size of this thing was really large. Gao's famous stadium, which often holds concerts, might not be bigger than this thing. She felt a little heavy in her heart. The bigger the size, the harder it is to deal with. Who knows what's in there? In a flash, the two swords had slipped into her hands. Report. The target has been found and is approaching. Everything is normal at the moment. Lin Fan reported to the main control in time. Xingqian's first-person camera can capture the picture and synchronize it to the main control room, but it still looks dark. However, they also know that Xingqian's eyes are also far behind Langsing's technological level. Even if they can't see anything, they still trust it with all their heart. Master Control understands. Xingqian, please be safe. Our reconnaissance aircraft is entering the stratosphere to support you. Xingqian understands. Lin Fan replied, except for the one in front of me. What about the other ones? A total of 5 UFOs were detected, of similar size. When outside the atmosphere, they were distributed at equal distances around the orbit. After entering the atmosphere, they moved and shifted towards the land. Are they trying to land? Lin Fan frowned. She looked at the huge size that was still far away. If they really land, it will be bad. She said in a deep voice, this thing is like a complex building. If it really lands successfully, and it is scraped on the ground, I think it will be much more difficult to remove than the signal device. Yes, we also speculate whether they want to establish some kind of temporary base on Lansing. Master Control replied. The flying object that entered Lansing this time is much larger than the previous advanced ship. If the previous advanced ship can still see some shadows of transportation and convenient movement. From the shape, this time, it is not the kind of flat and long aircraft, but rather bulky and suspicious. But if they were planning to land, then everything would make sense. Putting aside the sonic attack that worried them, once GRO established a temporary foothold on Lansing, their opponents would descend directly from thousands of miles in the sky to the ground. At that time, whether it was the opponent's high-tech weapons or the insect soldiers carried in them, they would be more difficult to control than in the air. The shortened distance also shortened the reaction time of all confrontations. In addition, they did not have particularly powerful firepower means at present, and they really had to. Isn't there a saying? It is easier to invite a god than to send him away. What's more, these guys are uninvited disasters. Therefore, the world is highly unified at present. That is, these uninvited guests cannot be allowed to descend, or even land. Lin Fan's heart was heavy, and he didn't know how much chance he had of winning against such a huge guy. Wait. A light suddenly flashed in her mind. If 5 aircrafts all have to land, will they correspond to the 5 continents? At present, the aircraft is still moving, and the target position has not been determined. Like the one in front of her, it is still in the sea vertically, but if it follows the trajectory, it will eventually fall into the territory of Country H. It is the closest to her, and the most threatening target to Country H, so it is the first target to be eliminated. In fact, geographically speaking, there are 7 continents in Lansing, but Antarctica is uninhabited all year round, and South America and North America are collectively called America. So many times, it is also called the 5 continents. We had some doubts before, but because they are still moving, and the trajectory is uncertain, we can't be completely sure. The main control replied clearly. But judging from the current trend, Antarctica has been ruled out. It's too cold there and not suitable for insects to survive, even mutant insects. The one in front of you should be coming for us. The one above is above Country E, and is still moving westward. There is also one above Oceania and Africa, which is also moving. Only one target has been confirmed in the Western Hemisphere, which is already in North America. Apollo has already gone up to intercept it. Failed to get to South America? Lin Fan quickly flipped through the world map in his mind. If there is only one target in such a large area as America, then the remaining 4 are all on her side, and the pressure is not ordinary. It may not miss. Judging from the current movement trajectory, it is very likely that the one over Africa will eventually fall into South America. The one near Oceania may fall into Africa. Will Oceania miss? Lin Fan asked. In terms of area, Oceania is the smallest, surrounded by sea. Compared with the land area, it is larger. Compared with the 2 connected plates of Asia, Europe, Africa, and America, it does not seem to be the best target. And in terms of distance, Oceania is very close to H country. If Oceania misses, the pressure for Lin Fan will be much less. Not sure. Oceania is surrounded by the sea. If it is used well, it is also an excellent location for a war. I don't know what GRO thinks. The main controller replied. At present, it is basically certain that the 2 in front of you and Apollo, and the one that is now over E country and should be in Europe. It is recommended to deal with it according to the priority level. Got it. After Lin Fan understood the general situation, he was no longer distracted. With a twist of her hands, she assembled the 2 swords into a spear and held it tightly, preparing to meet the giant that she was about to touch. She didn't know if she was too nervous, but she felt her heartbeat was a little fast, her chest was a little depressed, and she felt like vomiting. Xingchen, your data has changed significantly. What happened? The main control sent a prompt inquiry. Lin Fan didn't hide it, and told her guess. Are you nervous? The main control felt that Lin Fan's voice sounded okay, not like what she said. I think it's okay. Maybe my body is nervous? Lin Fan was not sure. In theory, she has experienced a lot of things. Although she can't avoid some uncertain worries about unknown objects, when it comes to the body, She felt something was wrong and stopped in midair. When she stopped, the strange feeling became more obvious. The hairs on her body seemed to stand up. It was not the kind of reflection of fear in her heart, but it was as if the skin felt the cold and reacted automatically. After a closer look, she distinguished a subtle difference. I don't know if it's an illusion. I seem to feel a vibration. Two big words appeared in everyone's mind instantly. Resonance. After 3 days of being stuck, I finally wrote it out. It's not easy. Why should I write about alien attacks? I haven't even watched 2 science fiction movies, and I'm writing about this. It's so difficult for me. Chapter 579 Shield. The harm of resonance has been mentioned before. In order to prevent the harm from further aggravating, they took action in advance and wanted to intervene in time. But unexpectedly, Xingqian felt the resonance in advance. There was a moment of panic in the control room. Xingqian, how do you feel now? Lin Fan was also scared for a moment after thinking about the resonance, but she quickly calmed down, and after carefully experiencing it, she answered solemnly. I feel okay, a little flustered, but overall it's okay. I'm not sure if this feeling is my subjective feeling, but I don't think it's a big problem at the moment. Isn't there a limit to the resonance frequency? The current sound waves are not harmful to the human body, right? Am I overthinking it? She remembered that Wu Yusen had just told her that the frequency of sound waves that would cause harm to the human body is very low, at least not within the current ultrasonic range. These aircraft have been slowly lowering the frequency. She just came out now, so it shouldn't be that much lower at once. Or is it, because she is close? The control room contacted her and answered her quickly. The sonar received sound wave interference. It may be that they released a second wave of sound waves. We asked Party P, and Apollo also felt slightly uncomfortable. It is very likely that this wave of interference is aimed at you too. It may be because of your special structure, with unknown metal objects inside and outside, which is different from the structure of the ordinary human body, so the reaction to sound and resonance frequency is also different. Lin Fan only remembered his status as a Mecha at this time. He is no longer an ordinary Langsing person. She always said that she was a person, but what about the fact? Once again, it was clearly stated to her that she was not. Forget it. Why think about these things now? She has not studied the resonance frequency of metals, and she has no idea whether it is within the ultrasonic range. And it is really hard to say what frequency the unknown metal in the body of Xingqian is. It is obviously impossible for Gro to know, and it is still trying. Then let the reconnaissance plane return home quickly, and don't come over. Lin Fan was angry, and decided not to sit and wait for death, and go straight in. They are going to kill you, and it's useless for you to hide. Go. The chief wanted to stop her, but then he thought it would be more dangerous to wait. Apollo had already opened fire. It was best to eliminate the danger in its infancy. Listen to her. Let the reconnaissance plane return, to avoid the serious consequences of metal resonance. Let the ground prepare for the air. The chief looked gloomy, staring at the black screen that could not see anything clearly. They seemed to be wrapped in this endless darkness, not knowing when the light would come, or how long it would last, so they could only fight instinctively. He was a tough guy who never believed in gods and Buddhas, but at this moment he suddenly hoped that there were gods in some corner of the world who could protect the stars. As the stars approached, the darkness gradually became lit, and everyone could vaguely see a huge outline, like a beast lurking in the dark. Everyone couldn't help but hold their breath. Although the data of the stars was abnormal, it was still stable. Lin Fan was uncomfortable, and as soon as he reached the attack distance, he angrily struck the opponent with a big electric shock. The calm stratosphere welcomed lightning for the first time. The purple-blue light illuminated the darkness, and a huge object like a city fortress appeared in front of everyone. It quietly floated in the air, blending into the darkness. Its body was smooth but not reflective, and there were no sharp protrusions or gun muzzles, but everyone still felt terrified. If such a big thing were really allowed to take root in the ground. Lin Fan felt refreshed at the moment of discharge. She was stunned for a moment. Was there something wrong with her psychology again? Would violence make her feel good? The voice of the master controller sounded in her ears in time. Good news, the sonar detected that the sound waves were interrupted for a short time, and the lightning attack was effective. Did I interrupt its attack? Or was it simply that the sound waves were disturbed? Lin Fan knew that the attack was effective and continued to rush forward happily. She knew that the discharged electricity would generate a strong magnetic field, which could interfere with some things under certain conditions, such as sound waves. It is not certain at the moment, but what is certain is that the attack was effective, but the interruption time was not long. The master controller replied, "It's okay as long as it works," Lin Fan said with a smile, his confidence rising again. "It won't take long, let's keep fighting, let's try again." After saying that, he swung his spear again. Everyone watched the screen, where a thicker purple lightning than before struck the aircraft, and the opponent's slow movement seemed to have been stopped by the lightning. Hiss. Such a big thunder was frightening. I heard that Xingqian can release 100,000 volts of electricity. How many unlucky people can withstand such a large amount of electricity? No, Zhu Kunjin shook his head. We can only measure such a large amount of electricity, which is the limit of the machine, but not hers. Xingqian has a sea of thunder in her body. No one can tell how much electricity is stored in it, but it is a lot anyway. Ban He once proposed that, after being able to withstand such a strong current and store it in the body, Xingqian's upper limit of attack is difficult to estimate. In other words, as long as she is willing, she can release any amount of electricity. After all, it is within the tolerance range of her body. The person asking the question looked at the big screen, and the lightning flashed one after another like a flashing light, and was shocked and speechless. As for Lin Fan, after receiving the affirmative notice from the main control, she became more excited to discharge electricity. Moreover, she unexpectedly discovered that the comfort she felt when she discharged electricity was not due to psychological reasons. Rather, the moment the electric current wrapped around her, the Mecha was shielded and protected, and she was no longer uncomfortable. Hey, isn't this method natural? Lin Fan happily attached a layer of electric film to her outer armor. The moment the new outer coat with a flash of crackling wrapped around her whole body, the negative state was indeed completely eliminated, and she became more excited. She poked it with a gun, and as a result, a burst of sparks passed, and only a shallow mark was scratched on the outer shell of the aircraft. It is indeed much stronger than the advanced ship. Lin Fan did not dare to stay for long, nor did he dare to step on it. He hung in the air, dragging the gun along, and scratching the outer shell of the aircraft. No matter whether it is useful or not, he scratched it first. The previous advanced ship had places that were easily scratched, and there were also places that could not be poked. Such a large aircraft can't be a seamless whole, right? There are always gaps, where the door is opened, and the ventilation is ventilated. On the screen, Xingqian flew around the aircraft at a high speed, looking back at the position where his subordinates were flying sparks from time to time, and kept flying around. At the same time, he did not forget to discharge electricity to everyone, and the lightning almost formed a thunderstorm, successfully blocking this guy in midair and unable to move. Awesome. Wang Fengfeng couldn't help clapping his hands. Lin Fan has become so powerful. It feels like he is not the same person as the one he usually contacts. In the control room, everyone who was also shocked by this magical attack soon received news from the space agency. What? The other 3 spacecraft accelerated. I checked the problem of mutual interference between sound waves and electromagnetic waves. How to say it, anyway, it is not certain in the end. This thing is all waves, so theoretically it should form interference, right? Well, I really can't read the scientific paper bit by bit. Just assume that it can interfere. Novel setting. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 580, Method of Breakthrough. This time, a total of 5 aircraft invaded Langsing from different locations at the same time. After they entered the mesosphere, they began to release sound waves. However, because the air in the mesosphere and stratosphere is relatively thin, the sound wave propagation effect is not good. Despite this, when the sparse sound waves were transmitted to the troposphere below, they still had an effect on the vast ocean. In the previous attack, they saw Langsing's resistance and felt that it might not be as strong as they imagined. So this time the attack was so slow. On the one hand, it was a kind of confidence. At the same time, they were also prepared to slow down the advance in case of any accidents on Langsing, which would also facilitate escape. As a result, one of the 5 aircraft was restrained by Xingqian and could not move, and the other was beaten back by Apollo. When they saw this situation, they didn't care about all kinds of concerns and asked the other 3 to speed up and try to land as soon as possible. According to their observation, there were only 2 mechas on Langsing, and no matter how powerful they could not beat 4 people with 2 fists. As long as one landed successfully, there would be plenty of opportunities for revenge. "How is Apollo?" asked the general. Because the mechas of both countries were in the cloud, except for the first-person camera, the ground surveillance was completely useless. Country H did not open Xingqian's perspective, and Country P did not open Apollo's either. In this case, if you want to get news from the other side, you can only pass it on by word of mouth. Soon, the latest battle situation came over. The other side said that Apollo's energy cannon attack is effective and can break the defense. But because the aircraft is too large, it will not be possible to control it as quickly as before. They need time. The general nodded and looked back at Xingqian's perspective. Compared to Apollo's breakthrough, Xingqian's side seemed to have made no progress and only held the other side back. "Where are the other 3 aircraft located?" he asked. Soon, a world map with a black background and green lines appeared on the big screen, with 5 red dots clearly marked on it. The one moving over the east coast of Country H is the one that Xingqian is entangled with. The one that is not moving in the northwest of Hua province should be being attacked by Apollo. The other 3 red dots are moving rapidly at a speed visible to the naked eye. It has crossed Oceania. The chief secretly breathed a sigh of relief and pointed to the red dot at the bottom and said, "This one should go to Africa. There is sea between Oceania and the African continent. If it does not change direction midway and wants to land on the ground, it can only go to Africa." Yes, the one near Africa went to South America, so our pressure will be much less. The Minister of Security echoed, "It's just that the one in the direction of Europe. Don't worry, that one is still over E-country and can't get through for a while." The chief tapped the table with his fingers. "In their sphere of influence, I'm not so worried. E-country, as the world's largest country, covers a very large area. This also means that, even if the aircraft accelerates, it will not fly out of E-country for a while." Why did the chief say that he was not worried about E-country? Because Europe is composed of many small countries with more power and more thoughts. They may not actively attack the aircraft if it flies into their airspace. Although I have been angry with the chief before, scolding him is not a big deal. Even if the aircraft is exposed to the attack range, as long as it does not fall on their own home, they may not open fire. Those smart individuals use their clever minds on such small matters, and the general manager does not trust them. On the contrary, the big brother of E-country is responsible and brave. The general manager believes that once the aircraft is exposed to his attack range, they will focus their fire to attack it at the first time. No matter whether they can win or not, they will do it. In addition, because of the previous attack on Z, E-country does not have as many concerns about opening fire as other G countries. Therefore, in the Eastern Hemisphere, apart from H country, the most likely country to contain the spacecraft is E country. It would be best to cause effective damage to the spacecraft. Even if it cannot, it is also an effective way to delay it and wait for Xingqian or Apollo to deal with it. Send a joint notice and let all participating countries try their best to contain them. The general manager ordered. Yes. The head of the security department quickly went down to make arrangements. At this time, Lin Fan was still circling, so fast that everyone could only see black and purple light on the screen, with some white sparks from time to time, which soon disappeared. Has Xingqian not broken through the defense yet? The general manager watched the red dot move quickly and couldn't help but feel a little anxious. Not yet, the person below responded. She is looking for a breakthrough point, but it doesn't seem easy. The aircraft was too big, and even if Xingqian was fast, it only left a layer of scratches on its shell. But scratches don't hurt bones after all. Lin Fan wondered if such a hard shell would also have the property of lightning resistance like the spider monster. If so, wouldn't all her previous strikes be in vain? But the main control told him that only a very small amount of the electricity she released spread downwards. That is to say, even if this thing can avoid lightning to a certain extent, some of it still entered the interior of the aircraft. Moreover, before finding a new and effective attack method, even if it was just a drop in the bucket, she didn't dare to stop. Xingqian, stop for a moment, the general manager suddenly said. After hearing this, Lin Fan immediately stopped. You can't do this, the chief said. Instead of casting a wide net to pick up leaks, it's better to focus on one point. Look carefully, such a quick pass can scratch its surface, proving that the hardness of the star gun can cause damage to this material. Lin Fan stared closely. She had always thought that she had only scratched a shallow layer of skin, but in fact, she dragged the gun around so much, leaving countless shallow grooves on the surface of the aircraft. It's like using an awl to quickly scratch rubber, not penetrating, but still leaving a mark. Try to hit a point repeatedly, the effect may be more obvious. The chief knew that she wanted to penetrate the outer armor and send electricity to the inside of the aircraft, causing the structure and organisms inside to collapse directly. Before the chief finished speaking, Lin Fan raised the gun and poked hard. Sparks flew every time, but the tip of the gun was not damaged at all. But the point she hit was, although it was not so obvious, but it works. Lin Fan was delighted. It seems to have grown bigger. Since she found the breakthrough point, Lin Fan didn't run away and drove piles at a fixed point, releasing electricity from time to time. But without the magnetic field changes she made while circling around, the aircraft got a break, began to move forward and descend. How could this be possible? Lin Fan was very anxious. But if he resumed circling, he could not break through the outer layer quickly. If he wanted to break through the outer layer, he could not stop it from moving. Lin Fan's mind was in a mess, and he didn't know what to do, but his men did not stop. Xingqian, think about your first attack in Hua province. The chief's steady voice came. Using acceleration may give you extra attack power. Lin Fan's attack has always been a short-range direct attack. Even if there was a small sprint the first time, it was not far from the aircraft at that time. She stopped for a long time before rushing forward again. Without the blessing of distance and speed, the attack was just her own strength. Although Xingqian's strength was great, it was obviously not enough in front of Gro's aircraft. Lin Fan understood what the chief meant. Gero is not on top, right? The chief was stunned, and then replied, no, it's on the back of Langsing. After hearing this, Lin Fan immediately let go and rushed up straight. On the big screen, there was only black, with a white shadow flashing by occasionally. When they looked again, the entire Langsing was in front of everyone. Since the satellite fell, they haven't seen the complete Langsing for a long time. Seeing it again this time, everyone was filled with emotion. Lin Fan exhaled twice and ordered in a steady voice, help me locate it. As for whether the sound waves will first affect the seabed creatures when they reach the troposphere, well, setting, hard setting. Hahaha, really, it's too difficult for me. I can't find any of this information. Chapter 581 Healthy Competition. Antonio laughed out loud when he heard that Lin Fan rushed into space. She is still ruthless. He propped up his knees. He had just smashed the aircraft in front of him into pieces. There were big holes and small holes, and it seemed that there was no living thing. Even for a Mecha man, it was very physically demanding for him to continuously fire energy cannons. He wanted to catch his breath and then go to South America. But when the news of Lin Fan came, he couldn't stand again. The girls are fighting so hard, and he is a man. Is it appropriate to rest at this time? It is said that the H countrymen are very competitive, but he has not seen much of it before. Now he sees that it is indeed worthy of the reputation. Antonio smiled bitterly and flew towards North America again. He solved one of the 5 aircraft on Langsing. Lin Fan's. If nothing unexpected happens, she should be able to deal with it soon. Antonio, who knew how difficult his opponent was this time, sighed secretly. Even so, there were still 3 left. He and Lin Fan still had one more. Casualties are inevitable, so he should hurry up. After dealing with the one in front, maybe he can help Lin Fan. Maybe Lin Fan will be less angry with him, because he took the initiative to help. Antonio realized that Xingqian was different from him, and did not have an energy cannon after the last attack. Her biggest attack method is discharge. This attack is actually very effective, but if it encounters an object with lightning protection properties, the effect is not as direct as his energy cannon. Yes. Country P does not know that Xingqian's evolution is incomplete. They have always thought that Xingqian's lack of cannons is a problem of individual differences, just like the big difference between Poseidon and Apollo. When Xingqian's own strength is so strong, even if she does not have a cannon, Party P does not dare to take it lightly, and even breathes a sigh of relief. It's great to have no cannon. Apollo can still restrict her to a certain extent. If she also has a cannon, then Apollo will be inferior to her in terms of both his own ability and his own emotions. Country P does not want that day to come. Even though they have already made plans to recruit Xingqian and bring her under their command. It was the kind of contradictory thoughts that wanted you to be powerful, but also wanted you not to be so powerful. It was completely different from the H country's efforts to help Lin Fan grow. After knowing that Xingqian could not break the opponent's defense, they felt pity and complacent pride at the same time. But after knowing that she rushed into space and prepared to dive and stab, they admired her courage. This is not like a simple free fall. Such a high fall must be coupled with extreme acceleration. Ovi suddenly felt a pain in the nerves at the bite point and hurriedly covered his cheek with one hand. Hiss. Such a hard bone, can he really chew it? Lin Fan didn't have time to think like them. As soon as she got the positioning, she rushed at the maximum speed. The ground kept correcting her positioning, and she also remembered the position of the previous stab. She couldn't hear the screaming sonic boom, and she couldn't see the dazzling fire. At this moment, she had no other distractions in her mind, and she was only focused on finding the stabbing point and piercing it. Xingqian's sprint at such a fast speed was more powerful than the previous satellite fall. In the Eastern Hemisphere, many people who were still on the surface saw the dazzling fireball. On the sea, countless ships were watching from the windows. Is that Xingqian? The first mate asked the captain. Yes. The captain's heart was surging, and he stared at the fireball that was wrapped in flames, and whose shape could not be seen clearly. That's our Xingqian. Even if Xingqian was a mecha, the actual feeling of diving at such an accelerated speed was very scary. Lin Fan was concentrating and didn't notice, but the people behind the screen felt like they were on a roller coaster, and many people felt dizzy. Just when they felt that they couldn't stand it, a black aircraft appeared in their field of vision. Everyone endured the discomfort and continued to watch. From seeing the aircraft to seeing it in front of them, it was almost a blink of an eye. Lin Fan spread the electric current all over her body, and when the tip of the gun penetrated the outer layer of the hull, she was glad that she had made the right bet. This was not enough. The shell that was originally difficult to break was easily penetrated, and following this momentum, Xingqian also penetrated it. Lin Fan was not paying attention and got into the aircraft. The momentum did not stop, but the aircraft was descending more rapidly. Can it stop at this time? Definitely not. Lin Fan broke through the internal structure of the aircraft layer by layer and released a large amount of current while passing through it. She did not estimate how much it was, but it was right to release a large amount. So everyone on the boat looked at a large black object falling out of the dark clouds. If it was not for the purple current around it, reflecting the reflection of the seawater, lighting up half of the sky, everyone might not be able to see its outline clearly. The people on the boat could see it, and the main control naturally received the third-party camera. Is Xingqian still in it? The chief was a little anxious. Still moving inside, someone replied, there are many structures inside, I'm afraid it will take. Before he finished speaking, the first-person perspective went dark. From the third-person perspective, a small white object with purple light came out from under the aircraft. It's out. Someone cheered. Looking at the aircraft again, it was surrounded by purple electric currents and seemed to have lost its own power, falling rapidly into the sea. Hey, hurry up. Someone exclaimed. Xingqian, remove the electricity. The general called out. They didn't know how much electricity Xingqian had just used, but judging from the neon-like effect, it must have been a lot. Below was the sea surface, and the aircraft was carrying such a strong current that it would spread everywhere along the sea water. Whether it was the creatures in the sea or the ships on the sea, they would be in trouble. Lin Fan came out of the aircraft and just took a breath and thought of this problem. Before the main control spoke, she had rushed up, and before the aircraft fell into the sea, she grabbed the hole that she had drilled out of and lifted it up. As soon as her hand touched the aircraft, the current on it surged to her arm along the contact point. Lin Fan felt her arm swelled greatly, but she didn't dare to let go. Fortunately, the weight of this thing was still bearable for her. When she pulled the hole, turned the spacecraft upside down, and flew to the top to hold it, all the electricity had been absorbed by her. To be honest, she didn't know how it was done, but it just worked. Seeing that the crisis was resolved, everyone cheered. Because the discharge from the inside of Xingqian spread to the outside, the electronic structure inside should have been destroyed. Life forms should have largely disappeared in the strong electricity. Although it took some time, compared with the tattered hull of Country P, the one in Xingqian's hands was obviously better preserved and more valuable for a search. Lin Fan didn't need anyone to order him, and he automatically dragged the things to the land. Where should this thing be placed? We need to check inside, just in case there are still some survivors. The general gave her a coordinate. Send it here. Don't worry about it. I will let the Mecha team go in to check. Don't worry. How is your physical strength? Do you need to replenish it? They could see the lightning above the clouds from below, and they thought that Xingqian must have consumed a lot of energy at this time. Lin Fan felt it carefully. Fortunately, I don't feel obvious fatigue. Let's deal with the next one quickly. How is Apollo? He is already dealing with the second one. The chief replied, there are 2 more now, both of which have broken through the stratosphere. One is at the EU-Europe border, and the other is on the African continent. Go to the EU-Europe border first. Lin Fan quickly delivered the things to the designated location, and prepared to leave. The chief rejected it. No, go to Africa first. Remember the first time I hit the spiders, they were all smashed to pieces, right? I use this trick. Chapter 580 to the disappearing aircraft. Lin Fan originally thought that, although Europe is not big, it has many small G's and a large population. Compared with Africa, which is near the equator, has hot weather, and is sparsely populated, it is more in need of rescue first. After all, she just inquired about it. If nothing goes wrong, the aircraft on the African continent should land on the African savanna. There are only grass and vegetation in that area, and there are animals of all sizes. If the spacecraft lands there, it may not encounter a living thing for a long time. Of course, their original intention is not to let it land. Don't you go to a crowded place first? Lin Fan was puzzled. No, go to Africa first. The general replied firmly. Crowded places seem to be risky, but the ground firepower is also heavy, and most of the people have been properly resettled. The aircraft is safe under the eyes. On the contrary, Africa is a grassland, let alone surveillance. There is not even a person. Once the aircraft lands there, no one knows what will happen. Lin Fan nodded. That's the truth. If there are still bug soldiers in the aircraft, without any external resistance, the African grassland is simply their best landing point. Besides, the terrain over there is flat and open. There are no buildings or people. It is convenient for you to perform, and you don't have to worry too much. So I asked you to go there first to deal with it. The general manager finished his words. I understand. Lin Fan waited for a while, until he saw the handover person coming and surrounding the 4 sides, and nodded to Fu Guang and others before soaring into the sky. The low destruction rate has its advantages, and it is more convenient for later research and utilization. There are also disadvantages. Just like now, I'm not sure what is going on inside, and I can't just let go and leave. Because of the delay, she couldn't help but feel a little anxious when rushing to the African grassland. First find it, then entangle it, and then use a flying trick. Lin Fan kept thinking about how to finish the work here faster, and then rush to Europe for support. What if there is no one guarding Africa? She asked. What if there are still living things inside, and they come out when she leaves? Then wouldn't the previous hard work be in vain? Well, do your best to destroy it. The general replied, one relatively intact aircraft is enough. The rest just need to be destroyed. Apollo's side directly pierced the aircraft into a sieve, and anything inside was dead. Okay. Lin Fan agreed. In his heart, he was thinking, is Apollo that powerful? I really didn't see it last time. But when she felt it was difficult, he quickly solved one problem and connected the second one in succession. I think he should not be as weak as she thought. The last time he was electrocuted, maybe purely accidental. Lin Fan touched his nose, suppressed the guilty conscience, and focused on the red dot in front of him. It seemed that he was almost there, but the red dot suddenly disappeared. What's going on? Lin Fan was shocked. The main control also found the abnormality, and a group of people were busy retrieving data. Is there a problem with the signal? Or is there a problem with the system? Lin Fan asked immediately, hesitated for a while, and continued to move forward. Send the coordinates, I'll go check it out. The difference between having navigation and not having navigation is like turning on a mobile phone with arrows and not having to study it yourself, or comparing it to the original map and having to find the way. Lin Fan knew how to locate the coordinates, but it was definitely not as convenient as smart navigation. Soon, the coordinates were sent, and the internal system of Zinglan automatically recognized the auxiliary navigation. There are no problems with the system and the signal. The aircraft suddenly disappeared. The reply from the space agency was also unbelievable. What do you mean by suddenly disappeared? How could such a large spacecraft suddenly disappear? Lin Fan frowned and tried to search for her meager knowledge. Did it encounter a sinkhole? Or an unknown magnetic field? The previous lightning strike could generate a magnetic field to interfere with the sound wave scattering of the aircraft, so it is also possible that other magnetic field interference caused the aircraft to disappear in the detection of the radio telescope. Could it be that it launched something on its own, just like a stealth aircraft, interfering with the radar, but it actually still exists? Lin Fan asked again, not daring to relax for a moment, and rushing to the point where the signal disappeared. No, the telescope didn't detect any magnetic field fluctuations over there. The main control was also confused. The European one is being targeted. It and Apollo's are both normal. Judging from the reflected waves of the telescope, there is just one aircraft missing. In theory, if the aircraft has a stealth function, it should be activated at the same time. The one in Apollo's hand has been damaged. Let's not talk about it for now. The one over Europe has been hit by many artillery shells by LD. Although there is no damage, if it can be invisible, it can be directly hidden in the positioning system, making it impossible for missiles to locate it. Isn't it good? After all, there is a huge difference between seeing with the naked eye and using navigation positioning. It is still early morning in the Eastern Hemisphere. Is it because the European one has been exposed? It doesn't matter whether it is invisible or not, but no one has noticed the African one, so it is invisible? Does it have other purposes? I think about it and don't understand, and the more I think about it, the more scary it is. The main control can't rule out various speculations, so I can only give instructions to Xingchen. What you said is not impossible, so please go and confirm as soon as possible. Understood. Lin Fan stopped talking after responding and focused on moving forward. At 2 o'clock in the morning, the grassland was as dark as the stratosphere. Nothing could be seen. Lin Fan arrived at the vanishing point and looked carefully. But the grassland was full of grass, and it was hard to see even a tree. Although Xingchen's eyes had night vision, what could she see in a patch of grass? Anyway, there was no shadow of the aircraft, unless it was shrunk and hidden in the grass. Lin Fan thought this possibility was too small. Let's not talk about whether it can be realized on a scientific level. If the aircraft can really be of any size, why didn't it shrink down from the beginning to enter Langsing? If this small size can disappear in the detection range of the radio telescope, then if it enters at this size from the beginning, no one will find it, right? Lin Fan thought it was impossible, but he didn't know where the aircraft had gone. He could only communicate with the main control constantly and searched all possible places around it along its original flight and landing range. Still no result. What should I do now? Lin Fan was a little anxious. The target could not be found here, and the frequency of the sonic attack in Europe was decreasing again and again, which had affected many things. If there was no threat from Europe, it wouldn't matter if she stayed and searched, but now it's obviously not possible. But it's not certain whether the thing in the grassland disappeared or how it disappeared. What if it reappears after she leaves? But the places that should be searched have been searched. Where to go and how to search? Lin Fan couldn't make up her mind. In the end, the chief ordered her not to worry about this side and go directly to support Europe. The one in Apollo's hands is already halfway through. If the one in Africa occurs again, Apollo can be asked to come for support. North America is not very far away. Lin Fan knew there was a solution, so he didn't hesitate anymore and flew directly to the last target. The disappeared aircraft is really gone. It was taken care of by a character who appeared before, but was not described in detail. Can anyone remember who it is? Chapter 583 Rescue. Before seeing the last aircraft, Lin Fan first heard a low and persistent low-frequency noise, which was somewhat annoying amidst the rumbling artillery fire. Has the frequency dropped so low? Lin Fan frowned. The range of sound waves that the human ear can hear is limited. From ultrasound, the frequency of sound waves in the audible range of the human ear is very high, and people usually find it very harsh. Xingqian's hearing is better than that of ordinary Langsing people, but the sound has been so low, it must have passed the highest point. Yes, since the disappearance of the one in Africa, the frequency of this ship has dropped rapidly, and it has been going on for a while. The situation is not very good. The voice of the main control was not affected. The network of the world tree is completely unaffected by the sound wave attack. Lin Fan bypassed several high-rise buildings and saw the aircraft hanging on the top of the 100-meter high building. The lights in the developed city were lined up, illuminating the invader clearly. The artillery fire kept hitting it from different angles, except for showing that its defense was invincible, without leaving any traces. Lin Fan had never seen her opponent in such a bright occasion. Perhaps because she had successfully killed one before, she did not feel that much pressure in her heart, but was worried about such a low frequency. Just when she wanted to make a quick decision and get rid of the last one, the tall building next to her suddenly roared and suddenly lost a piece. What happened? Lin Fan looked back and saw that the flat facade of the tall building that was still in good condition just now began to break, like stones or even dust, falling off. Before she could react, the next moment, the glass on the building shattered one after another, and the main part continued to sink, like a tall building that had been blown up, half collapsed abruptly, and it was still falling. Hurry. The main control reminded in the headset. This has resonated with the building structure, and the effect is similar to an earthquake. Lin Fan was stunned, and another shorter building next to her collapsed. On the contrary, those tall buildings, whether because they were built later, or because of the use of high-tech means, are still standing steadily. When she was about to rush forward, she heard the sound of a baby crying. How come there is still a baby here? Lin Fan suddenly stopped, and quickly scanned the surroundings. Didn't everyone evacuate? Affected by the sound waves, the surrounding buildings may collapse at any time. At this time, those who stayed in the buildings were undoubtedly gambling with the god of death, and it was a situation where they would definitely die. The chief control was also confused when he heard Lin Fan's question. Impossible. They said that everyone had evacuated. Lin Fan glanced at the aircraft hanging in the sky, but he still couldn't ignore the crying in his ears, so he turned around and started searching. The chief control wanted to remind Lin Fan to deal with the guy above his head first, but was stopped by the general manager. Let her go. The general manager looked at Apollo, who was entering the final stage on the screen, and the stars that turned around, forming two obvious contrasts. But the chief control hesitated, thinking that at this time, it was obviously more important to deal with the aircraft. How could she turn a blind eye to the life right in front of her? It was hard to tell whether the general manager's words were a blame or a compliment. Obviously, he had understood Lin Fan's character to a certain extent. The director had heard about the impact of the subway massacre on Lin Fan, and she had always felt guilty for the lives lost. Now facing a similar situation again, choosing to lend a hand was an expected result. In so many life and death situations, Xingqian had rushed to the front to lead them through the difficulties. since she had made a decision, instead of forcing her to do it and leaving a knot in her heart, it would be better to let her do what she wanted, as it wouldn't delay them for long anyway. Moreover, on this night, where countless people had died and been injured, if they could really save a young life, it would be a special encouragement for them. So, with the director's connivance, everyone watched Xingqian looking around in silence. There, someone saw a window on the big screen with sharp eyes. A person seemed to be holding a baby and waving, but Xingqian was frightened and retreated again and again when he approached. Lin Fan happily approached and told the mother loudly in P language that she was here to rescue them and the building could collapse at any time, so she asked her to come to the window and she would hold them to a safe place. The control center also contacted the local ground staff to discuss the issue of the response. The mother didn't know why she was in the deserted building, but now was not the time to delve into it. She held a crying baby in one hand and a huge bag on her wrist. She was anxious and wandered around the window on the 10th floor. She was originally defensive against Xingqian, but after seeing a building behind Xingqian collapse, she finally walked forward. Lin Fan moved forward, wanting to get closer to respond to them, but when he was still a few steps away, the floor-to-ceiling glass suddenly broke. The woman subconsciously stepped back a few steps, and at the same time, the floor began to tilt, and the building collapsed. Lin Fan didn't care about much and rushed forward. But this time the angle of collapse was not like the previous collapse from the bottom, but the entire structure remained horizontal. Instead, it tilted in the opposite direction. The mother holding the child was already retreating, and as the floor collapsed, she rolled down. Lin Fan took advantage of the fact that the structure of this floor was still intact and went in. He wanted to pull the mother and child into his arms to protect them, but the mother threw the child directly at her. The child in the cradle cried loudly, and Lin Fan, who had taken off his current shielding suit, grabbed the child in his arms. As soon as the shielding suit was removed, she immediately felt obvious discomfort. Low-frequency sound waves not only have an offensive effect on buildings, but also on her. She endured the vibration of the Mecha all over her body and wanted to rush over to grab her mother, but the broken floor blocked her sight and covered her mother without a trace. She held the long sword in her hand and was ready to cut the floor in front of her, but the building structure above collapsed again, covering her whole body underneath. Lin Fan had to hold the baby in her arms and try to give it a sheltered space. Xingqian? Xingqian, please answer. In the control room, the picture on the big screen went dark as Xingqian's vision went dark, and she called out anxiously. Don't worry, Xingqian will be fine. ZHU Kunjan said confidently, but his eyes still revealed a little worry. This level of building structure can't cause any harm to her. Many people present remembered Xingqian's hardness at this time. They were all shocked by the fact that she was crushed by the collapsed building. It's not their fault. After all, it's very easy to empathize with the first-person perspective. That woman is probably dead. Someone whispered. Obviously, ordinary people in this situation can't be as lucky as Xingqian. The child should be saved, right? Someone else asked. It's hard to say. The person next to him answered. Didn't Xingqian grab the child? The person who asked was puzzled. You probably didn't notice that Xingqian's chest armor was bulging. Even if he put his hands around, there might not be enough space to protect the child. The man thought carefully, and it seemed to be the case. He opened his mouth, licked his lips, and said with difficulty, so Xingqian didn't save anyone. Have you ever had this experience? Even if you try your best, the final result is still nothing. It is very likely that you will suffer from it repeatedly in your heart, and feel regretful that you would rather not have done it. Chapter 584 Severe Injury. Lin Fan knew the weight of the stars, so she didn't dare to fall down with the building and press on the ruins of the collapsed building. Instead, she pointed the long sword in her hand outward, flapped her wings lightly, and fell to the side. If the space was not unsuitable, she would have wanted to retreat, because falling in the opposite direction would definitely be the easiest place to escape. But reality did not allow it. She could only lower her head, bend her waist, and turn her back upward to cover the child in her hands as much as possible. In the darkness, she was a little afraid to move, afraid that something would fall from above and hit the child in her arms. But the child hadn't cried for a long time. The annoying resonance continued, and Lin Fan felt that her teeth began to shake. and she could even hear the vibration sound at the joint of the mecha. This collapsed environment had little effect on her, but it would suffocate the child. There was no room for hesitation. Lin Fan roughly recalled the position where her mother fell and tried to break through in the opposite direction, trying not to oppress the mother who was pressed below. After finally climbing out from inside, she flew to the light with the child in her arms, but found that the child's face was covered with ash, his eyes were closed, and blood was flowing from his mouth and nose. Lin Fan felt very uncomfortable and couldn't tell whether it was due to resonance or something else. She carefully put her fingers under the child's nose, but she couldn't feel any breath, and there was no obvious pulse on the side of the neck. Lin Fan's whole body was numb, and she felt as if all the muscles in her body were electrocuted. She carefully put the child on the ground and wanted to give it CPR, but she was afraid that Xingqian's strength would cause greater damage to the child's fragile body, and she didn't know how to do CPR at all. She just knew about compression and artificial respiration. Before the people in the control room could figure out how to comfort her, they found that the perspective had changed. On the screen, Xingqian's black mecha hand no longer appeared, replaced by Lin Fan's slender fingers. Is she crazy? Someone shouted. What's the difference between dismantling the mecha at this time and committing suicide? There were buildings that collapsed everywhere, and missiles kept hitting the aircraft, splashing all kinds of debris. Lin Fan once again used his fingers to confirm that the baby had stopped breathing, knelt beside it, and gently pressed its chest with his fingers. But she didn't know how to press, and the soft touch under her hands made her afraid to use force. She looked up and looked around for a few times. There was no one around, except for buildings and street lights. Lin Fan had never felt so isolated and helpless as she did at this moment. The baby who was crying just now, in her hands, was now motionless. Wu Yusen saw Lin Fan's camera shaking left and right, and then returned to the baby and continued to press, feeling very uncomfortable. Lin Fan had faced countless life and death in just a few days, but this time, it was the closest to her, the most hopeful of success, but also the most cruel and direct one for her to face death. Drops of water fell on the baby's swaddling clothes, which were particularly clear in the shaking picture. The person who had just blamed Lin Fan for not being rational could not bear to continue talking. Even if everyone was in a high position, had a wide range of experience, and was old, they would still feel sad instinctively when facing the death of such a young child. The child was obviously compressed in the collapse just now, and died at that time. Lin Fan's rescue could not change the fate of the mother and child, but only added 2 more wounds to her heart. Seeing that no one stopped her, the main control simply searched for infant first aid knowledge and read it to Lin Fan in a soft voice. Lin Fan tried her best to follow the instructions, but she was not a doctor after all, so she could only do so much. After several rounds of compression, the blood in the child's mouth and nose even overflowed. Lin Fan really couldn't stand that scene, and thought of the bloody scene in the subway before, so she sat down and cried loudly. Halfway through crying, she remembered that her mother was trapped under the rubble, and maybe she could still be saved. After transforming and rushing over there for a few steps, she suddenly realized that the large-scale collapse, with one layer on top of another, would easily cause secondary damage and injure the people who were still alive more seriously. It was not known when the local rescue would arrive, and even if it arrived, it might not be possible to launch a rescue in this situation. The child's mother's life is life, so isn't it the rescuer's life? Lin Fan's originally positive heart was shattered by this accident. What should she do? She looked at her hands blankly. Do nothing? Can't do anything? Xingqian's power is like a joke at this moment. She can't even save the people at hand. She can't even save the people in her hand. Lin Fan couldn't stop crying, and the control room couldn't call her, and entered an emergency state. I never expected that the powerful Xingqian would stop. The general manager frowned. I always knew that this girl's psychological quality was not good, but she has been doing well for so long. Even after the subway incident, she was very calm. He thought it was exaggerated by the special incident, but I didn't expect. The powerful strength was knocked down by the fragile kindness. The general manager didn't need to think too much to know that this girl must have put the fate of the mother and son on herself. Kindness is good, but sometimes, it's not good. The general manager had a headache and asked ZHU Kunjin what to do. ZHU Kunjin could only contact Jin Sichin and let Jin Sichin come out to appease Lin Fan's suddenly collapsed mentality. The general manager also quickly contacted Party P and asked Apollo to come for support. Fortunately, there has been no news about the missing aircraft in Africa, so Apollo can come directly, otherwise it would be really busy. After Jin Sichin learned about the situation, he immediately avoided the ugly woman and ran to a remote place to start connecting with Lin Fan. He knew Lin Fan and knew how to quickly pull her back. Whether he could continue to fight or not, Lin Fan stayed under the spacecraft for a long time in this state, and he didn't even have the mind to deal with the resonance. He was exposed nakedly, and safety was a big problem. Fortunately, after he spoke, Lin Fan quickly regained his sanity. Putting aside the uncertain things, what she could do now. She looked at the spacecraft that was more conspicuous after the collapse of countless buildings, and quickly added a layer of protection to herself, gritted her teeth and flew up. As the only surviving aircraft on Langsing, the other party saw Xinchen rushing over, and naturally it was impossible for her to attack stupidly. Instead, it showed an unprecedented speed, and crashed into Lin Fan. Lin Fan didn't dare to confront it head on, and quickly retreated. She was about to ascend directly and give the opponent a dive-through combo, but as soon as she jumped up, she felt her entire body of armor tremble and fell directly to the ground. Lin Fan endured the pain and climbed up, looking at the intermittent thin electrical protection layer on her body, and didn't understand what happened for a moment. Is her magnetic field isolation ineffective? The main control center message, Xinchen, the latest detection is that the opponent is launching multiple sound wave attacks at the same time, which may penetrate your previous protection. Lin Fan felt it, and she felt very uncomfortable, as if she was thrown into a meat grinder and ground, and put together again. Since the opponent has strengthened the sound waves, can't she strengthen the current shielding? It seems simple to think about, but this attack seems to have really affected her. The movements that were originally natural have not worked for a long time. Lin Fan felt that her head was getting more and more painful, and her internal organs seemed to be clamoring faintly. The Mecha kept vibrating, making the eardrums uncomfortable, and even the bones were shaking. Under this kind of continuous vibration, the electricity that can play a shielding role cannot be released continuously. Lin Fan felt terrible. She looked at the giant monster getting closer and closer, and felt that she would die here. Countless images flew through her mind, but she couldn't catch them at all. She could only lie on the ground and feel the rhythm of her body, which gradually became uniform. She didn't expect that she would die here. Suddenly, Lin Fan's heart calmed down. She listened to the deafening sound all over her body and felt that death was imminent. Death didn't seem to be as scary as she imagined. Just when she was about to relax, a burst of fire shot out from a distance, directly blowing the approaching aircraft away. The unbalanced aircraft turned several times before stabilizing its shape. Lin Fan, who was pulled away, felt that her body control seemed to have returned a little. Where did this attack come from? It was so effective. Her eyes darkened, and an unexpected face appeared above her head. The familiar voice made her tense nerves relax again. Are you okay? Kindness comes at a price. Many times, this price is unbearable. Chapter 585, The Turn of Times. Antonio saw the aircraft that had already descended very low from a distance, and the white dot that was motionless below it. Even though it was not yet at a position where he could see it clearly, he instinctively knew that it was Lin Fan. The frequency of the sound waves here made him feel unbearable, and he felt upset as soon as he arrived. Lin Fan had been immersed in this harmful wave for so long. If she had not been seriously injured, she would not have been so motionless according to her character of shooting down the opponent at all costs. Antonio was furious. Even though he had destroyed 2 aircraft in a row and his body was already feeling seriously tired, he still fired a salvo at the first time to push away the approaching aircraft. Whether it was Lin Fan as a friend or Xinxing as a person of equal combat power, they were both important people he did not want to lose. The aircraft was forced to retreat while spinning, and the suffocating sound waves also moved away as it moved away. Antonio felt his whole body lighten, and without thinking too much, he had already rushed to Lin Fan's side. He breathed a sigh of relief when he saw the other person's eyes were green, proving that he was still conscious. "Are you okay?" he asked. When Lin Fan saw Antonio appearing in front of her, she suddenly remembered the scene where he was knocked unconscious by her and lay on the ground. It was indeed a matter of time. It didn't take 30 years, but 3 days to turn the two people's situations around. She couldn't say okay. The internal organs of her body felt like they were displaced by the shock, although they were actually still in her chest. Her bones also felt very sore, as if they were taken out and put back. "Can you get up?" Antonio looked at her and moved his palms, but he didn't seem to have the strength to get up by himself, so he stretched out his hand to her. Lin Fan didn't have time to think about her complicated emotions towards Antonio. She grabbed his hand tightly and stood up with the force. The feeling of being resonated was really uncomfortable. She felt nauseous and wanted to vomit. She felt like being crushed by a heavy truck, with the pain of a concussion and broken bones all over the body. Trying her best to steady her swaying body, she squinted her eyes, took a few shallow and rapid breaths, and squeezed out a sentence, "Thank you." Antonio suspected that Lin Fan had guessed who she was, but he didn't dare to ask directly. What if he was overthinking? Besides, this was not the right time. He looked up at the aircraft that had adjusted its position and slowly lifted off, and asked, "Can you still fight? I don't think you are well." After she stood up, she was a little hunched, bent over and lowered her head, and was still swaying. Antonio was afraid that she would fall down at any time, so he supported her with both hands. Lin Fan suppressed her nausea, swallowed a mouthful of saliva, tried to open her eyes and look up. "I'll try." Antonio saw her right wrist turn, and a long sword slipped out of the arm guard and was held in her hand. She raised her left hand diagonally downward, a white light flashed, and the other long sword that had just fallen somewhere returned to her hand. With a skillful twist of her hands, the two long swords turned into familiar spears. Can it still be like this? Antonio was shocked by the operation of this automatic retrieval and combination weapon. Lin Fan slammed the spear into the ground and finally stabilized her body. "Get out of the way," she warned in a low voice. Antonio subconsciously took 2 steps back. The next second, purple electric light emerged from the inside of the star and stayed on the surface, forming a thick protective film. From time to time, there were arcs jumping on the surface. Fortunately, I dodged quickly. Antonio got goosebumps in an instant and almost hugged himself with his arms around his chest. He didn't forget the bad experience of being electrocuted unconscious before. Although nothing happened after waking up, that kind of experience is enough to experience once in a lifetime. "You are." He didn't understand why Lin Fan was discharging electricity at this time. She was obviously very weak. Shouldn't she save energy? Lin Fan was also surprised to see that Apollo had no protection around him. "Electric current can form a protective magnetic field to help me isolate myself from the harm of sound waves. The resonance just now almost killed me. Can't you feel the damage of sound waves?" "Yes," Antonio replied, "just not as strong as you." In the previous 2 rounds of attacks, Apollo opened fire before the sound waves changed. A bunch of broken aircraft with sieve holes simply had no ability to emit multi-band sound waves to trap him. And now, he guessed that Lin Fan's internal organs had been damaged, and his resistance to sound waves was not as strong as he who was not injured, but just felt tired. But the next moment, the sound waves became fierce, pressing towards the two of them like a tidal wave, and Antonio also felt the power of resonance. The surrounding buildings had already collapsed, and on the ruins, except for the two of them, there were only aircraft in the sky. "Do you want to give you full electromagnetic protection?" Lin Fan asked hurriedly when he saw Antonio was exhausted. Antonio saw that Lin Fan was not affected. He was both fond of and afraid of the purple protective layer. He asked carefully, "Will you do it for others?" "No," Lin Fan answered honestly, "I haven't done it, but I can try." Antonio took another step to the side. "Forget it. I'm afraid of the consequences of failure. We can't afford it." Lin Fan thought about it, and it made sense. She was now at low health. If she knocked down the main force of the rescue, she would really be in trouble. Then, She wanted to say something, but then she saw Apollo's shoulder armor opened upwards, revealing a black round hole like a lotus heart inside. Lin Fan blinked. What is this? The next moment, the black color began to turn red, and it seemed that a spiral cyclone could be seen on the round hole. Bang 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 bang. Another round of volleys. The red light dragged a long tail and rushed straight towards the aircraft in the sky. Lin Fan couldn't help but chase them, watching them pierce countless holes in the extremely hard outer shell of the aircraft, and then silently looked back at the black holes that were still smoking. Didn't someone say that? Attack is the best defense. Just shoot it down. Antonio's voice was filled with laughter. He was very satisfied with being able to show off in front of Lin Fan, and finally he could avenge his previous shame. Lin Fan was a little confused. He also had a cannon. It could directly penetrate the defense that she found difficult, and its power was evident. You used this to fight the two before? She asked faintly. Yeah. Antonio was very happy. But the power has been reduced now. After all, the energy consumption in the first 2 rounds was a bit high. Lin Fan was depressed. Even with the reduced power, it can easily penetrate the hull of the spacecraft. So what was the point of all the hard work before? I thought the two were the same, or even that I was a little stronger, but now I see that it is easy to be blinded by a leaf when you look at the sky from a well. She subconsciously glanced at her shoulder armor, which was indeed different from Apollo's, but it seemed a little similar. Lin Fan felt uncomfortable, not knowing whether it was the sequelae of resonance or the psychological gap. She was not jealous. She also wanted to have such a powerful weapon. But now was not the time to think about these things. Antonio was obviously also very exhausted. She couldn't just watch him work so hard after coming all the way to save her. Gripping the spear tightly, Lin Fan rose from the ground. Since she had been punched, she wouldn't be polite. Apollo came to the rescue. Clap. Chapter 586 Joining Forces. Lin Fan felt that she must have been injured internally, and the sluggish feeling during flight was very different from before. She concentrated her mind to control her body, to stabilize, and rushed forward. This was when she had the ability to heal herself. If not, she would probably be dead now. She aimed at a hole made by Apollo and was ready to poke forward with the gun in her hand, but was dodged by the aircraft that was so close to her. Yes, this huge thing that looked like a small castle showed agility that was completely inconsistent with its size, so Lin Fan missed. On the other side, Apollo, who had already distanced himself from her, fired another volley and intercepted the opponent in time. This thing can run, you have to be careful. His voice came from afar. Lin Fan's shot missed, and she felt like vomiting blood. Physiological. She pressed one hand on her chest, took a breath meaninglessly, and swallowed the fishy sweetness that surged up in her throat. I haven't encountered this before. She had originally used high-speed detours and electric shocks to trap the opponent, and then took advantage of the situation to pierce it with a rouleau divine spear. Who could have thought that she could do this? Lin Fan himself hadn't thought of it either. These things are very smart. Antonio shouted at the top of his voice. I killed them directly when I attacked them first, and when I attacked the second one, they ran away. Lin Fan listened and was startled by the loud voice that suddenly came out of the headset. The main control explained in time that, since the two of them were already in the same area, it was convenient for them to communicate, and they directly connected their communications. In the control rooms on both sides, the two first-person perspectives were also synchronized. Lin Fan felt that he was under another wave of sound attack, and said helplessly, "Be quiet, it's noisy." Oh, Antonio also heard Lin Fan's voice from the headset, apologized neatly, and said, "The second one wanted to run like this, but I still had enough energy at the time, and it took some effort to delay it. It's just that the continuous concentrated fire consumes a lot of my energy. You can see that the current damage is not very good. If I attack alone, it will be very difficult, but with your help, it should be much smoother." Antonio didn't mean to hide anything in front of Lin Fan. After all, they were fighting side by side, and he was already clearly at a disadvantage. Lin Fan seemed to have some power left, so it was better for the two of them to work together and show their strengths than to deal with this guy alone. Lin Fan started the engine and chased after him. After hearing Antonio's honesty, he hesitated for a few seconds and was also very honest. My body is not very good and I'm not very controllable, but it should be no problem to discharge. Lin Fan took a breath and continued, I want to discharge the inside along the hole you made and disintegrate from the inside. Antonio heard Lin Fan's heavy breathing and was a little worried when he saw her slower movements than before. But he knew Lin Fan's temper, and if he said yes, he really could. He pursed his lips and did not interfere with Lin Fan's plan, nor did he let Lin Fan go down and take it all by himself. Instead, he accelerated forward, flew to the opposite side of Lin Fan, and fired at the aircraft. He hoped to force it in front of Lin Fan. But there were two people, one with low health, and the other, although intact, was not strong enough, and the power of the shells was greatly reduced. The two of them surrounded a nearly intact huge high-tech aircraft, which would leave a clear gap. The aircraft simply chose to move aside. Fortunately, Apollo caught up in time. Lin Fan missed again, and felt that it was more difficult to control her body. She felt obvious pain with every breath. This time, the pain was in her stomach, so sharp that she thought of the pain of being pierced before. There was no external injury, but she felt that her whole body was pierced. The main control had already noticed Xingqian's slowness and heavy breathing, and spoke in time. Xingqian, do you want to stop? Party P said that, although Apollo is difficult to do alone, he should be able to do it. Antonio did not tell Lin Fan, but seeing that Lin Fan was in such a difficult situation, he expressed this to OV, and asked him to indirectly tell Party H that he was willing to take it all. Lin Fan raised her eyes and watched Apollo continue to charge forward. But his artillery fire was much less powerful than what she saw at the beginning. Before Apollo showed up, that round of concentrated fire directly overturned the aircraft and flew far away. Now, although the number of volleys has not decreased, the opponent is no longer affected by the shockwave and is passively pushed. The holes on the shell are getting smaller and smaller, from the original tier-type large wound to the current small round hole that the tip of the gun cannot penetrate. Antonio may be thinking of grinding hard, but it is obviously difficult for him to deal with 3 large aircraft in a row. Lin Fan doesn't know how powerful the cannon on his shoulder is, but it can be imagined from the fact that he has scrapped 2 aircraft in the past with such means. This kind of powerful output is undoubtedly laborious. Lin Fan is also a Mecha man. She knows very well the fatigue and consequences of overdrawing the body. On the contrary, she herself, although injured now, has relatively abundant physical strength. Before, she only solved 1 aircraft, and she used the power of thunder and lightning, which is equivalent to not much effort. Although she felt that her internal injuries were not light, she also knew her cell recovery ability. The more serious the injury, the faster the repair. As long as she could hold back, control her body, and insert the tip of the gun into the hole made by Antonio. As long as she could release any one of them, she could use strong electricity to destroy the other party. Antonio didn't have to do this again, constantly, like a chicken pecking at rice. Lin Fan was suspended in the air, looking at Antonio's agile movements, and came up with a solution. Come here. Antonio hesitated when he heard Lin Fan's call. Looking at the aircraft shell full of holes, he flew in front of Lin Fan. What's wrong? Lin Fan swallowed something in his throat and looked at him. Help me, I have to insert it inside to discharge electricity. There was no subject, predicate, or object, but Antonio understood. He knew clearly that his current attack was downgraded, but seeing that Lin Fan was in a really bad state, he couldn't ask for help, so he just held on. Now Lin Fan's proposal seemed to be beneficial to them and harmless. He took Lin Fan over, which would not cause additional burden on her body, and could solve her difficult to approach dilemma, which seemed worth a try. Hurry, Lin Fan urged. Antonio was immersed in multiple sonic attacks, and he was not feeling well either, but he was much better than Lin Fan. Without thinking too much, he put his arm around Xingqian's waist, and brought her up at the moment when she removed her protection. The aircraft was fast, but it was too large, and could not match the speed of the Mecha. Antonio brought Lin Fan to a relatively large wound. Lin Fan endured the blurred consciousness, and stabbed the gun hard. Without the obstruction of the hard shell, the tip of the gun went straight into the hull. Go! Lin Fan roared. Antonio quickly let go and stepped back. The purple lightning spread rapidly towards the aircraft with Xingqian as the center. Antonio watched the current increase from a trace to the thickness of his arm in an instant, and it was still increasing. The endless purple current from nowhere quickly enveloped the entire aircraft. Xingqian stood on it steadily, and there was no sign of her previous weakness. Under the huge purple light, the sky turned purple. She was like a queen overlooking the world, standing on the top of the evil dragon and taming it. Suddenly, a huge ball of lightning leaped up and down, and a thick electric light that split the sky and the earth lit up. Antonio seemed to see a light that could destroy the world. Then all the light disappeared, and everything fell into darkness again. Is that enough? Lin Fan's hands are really amazing. Antonio saw the aircraft begin to fall, and rushed over to pick up Lin Fan. Lin Fan coughed up a mouthful of blood. The moment he lowered his head, he saw the position of the gun tip, and there seemed to be a faint red color in the gap. Blood. She subconsciously pulled out the spear, and saw that in the hole below, red light surged up, with a tendency to burn through everything, dyeing all colors red and bright, emitting a dazzling white light. All living things have an instinctive awareness of danger. Before Lin Fan's brain could react to what was going on, he jumped towards Antonio, who was rushing over, and at the same time, the spear slipped out of his hand, and whipped him hard. Run. Men and women work together, and work is not tiring. It is faster to have someone to help than to work alone. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 587 Survival. Antonio was not prepared for Lin Fan to attack him. He was caught off guard by her heart-wrenching roar, and then he was thrown out by the spear. It hurt. He was hit hard in the chest, and grabbed the spear to stop the momentum. As a result, the black night sky lit up with red light, and then quickly turned into a dazzling white. Antonio didn't know how many times he had fired energy bombs, and he was very familiar with this kind of energy accumulating explosion light. He raised his head with his hair bursting, only to see Xingqian's figure annihilated in the white light. The deafening sound pushed him out with a violent shockwave. Antonio's mind was blank, and he only had time to grab Xingqian's gun. The aircraft exploded. Whether it was country H or country P, the big screen was filled with white light that purified everything, and then it was pitch black. Everyone was stunned. Is Gro going to drag them down with him even if he dies? Exclamation mark. How is Lin Fan? Exclamation mark. How is Antonio? Exclamation mark. After such a strong explosion, they dared not take chances, but hoped that the god of luck would favor them. Xingqian and Apollo were their lucky insurance, resisting Gro's attacks again and again. If they both died at the same time, what would happen next? No one dared to think about it. Quick, quick, quick. Ovi jumped and shouted, "Go to rescue." The chief stood upright. His face was extremely ugly. "Contact people nearby." His voice was trembling. "Rescue at all costs." The information room of the Special Affairs Office was also dead silent. Compared with other people, they had deeper feelings for Lin Fan. Wu Yusen didn't know that tears were rolling out of his eyes, and he was stunned. "It's okay, it's okay." Wang Fengfeng trembled all over and said, "Lin Fan has the ability to heal herself. She must be fine." I don't know if this is to convince himself or to comfort others. Lin Fan has the ability to heal herself. As long as it is not killed by one blow, she can recover. But in such a strong explosion, they saw with their own eyes from Apollo's perspective that Xingqian's extremely hard body seemed to melt in the light. Can Lin Fan really survive such an explosion? ZHU Kunjin rarely smiled, and he also did not say a word. 800 Research Institute. Cui Yan overturned the neatly arranged documents on the table, no longer as calm and self-sustaining as before. After turning around the office like a trapped beast for a few times, he slowly regained his composure. He returned to his desk and called the person in charge of armaments. "Can the materials in your hand be put into use?" Antonio opened his eyes and felt pain all over his body, looking at the twinkling stars in the dark night. Damn, how long has it been since he was injured? After this thought flashed through his mind, all the previous events flooded into his brain. Lin Fan. He quickly turned over and let out a painful groan. Antonio put his hand on his chest and saw that his mecha was still in good condition. There was no obvious damage to the outer armor except for scratches, so he breathed a sigh of relief. It was not yet dawn, but there was nothing in sight. There were no aircraft, no streetlights, and even the ruins of the collapsed building were gone. Antonio struggled several times before getting up. Looking around, he didn't see the person he missed. Lin Fan. He shouted at the top of his lungs, but his hoarse voice barely made it out. After just 2 words, he kept coughing, which made his chest hurt even more. Antonio hadn't been so embarrassed for a long time. He looked at the empty surroundings and felt a kind of fear of being alone. Ovi, Ovi. He called softly, but got no response, and coughed again. After a break, Antonio recovered his breath and planned to go find Lin Fan. His mecha was intact, so Lin Fan should be fine too. At this moment, he didn't dare to think about how far Lin Fan was from the center of the explosion, and didn't dare to think about how seriously injured Lin Fan was. He only knew that he had to go find her. Walking step by step in the deserted open space, the only light was the faint fluorescence from his eyes. Ovi felt like he was walking on the moon, or Mars. The further he went, the more scared he felt. Fortunately, this is the last one, he muttered to himself. Otherwise it would be really miserable. He tried to think positively and comforted himself with a smile. But as he laughed, he burst into tears. It turned out that they had thought too simply. As long as the aliens abandoned a flying vehicle and exploded, they could easily flatten a city and seriously injure him and Lin Fan. Their previous efforts seemed like a joke of self-righteousness that could successfully resist alien invasion. Antonio staggered forward, tears blurring his eyes, but he had not given up looking for Lin Fan. There was a clang under his feet, and he stepped on something. He looked down and saw the silver-white spear lying quietly under his feet. The moment before the explosion, Lin Fan used this spear to send him far away. Antonio thought of this and couldn't help crying. He squatted down, held the star gun in his hand, and hugged it in his arms, as if he was hugging Lin Fan, and cried loudly. At this time, he could no longer care about the various pains in his body. Antonio decided that from this moment on, Lin Fan would be his forever friend. Forever. As he cried, he suddenly thought, if Lin Fan's gun was still there, would he be fine too? Antonio immediately became alert. He got up and went forward. Lin Fan was still alive, definitely alive. He had to find her sooner. If the 800 people were there, they might tell him that the gun was there, but the person was not necessarily there. It was like a cuckold. But in fact, the 800 people wanted Lin Fan to be alive more than anyone else, and it was impossible for them to remind Antonio, whose internal communication was damaged at this time. In the control room, the latest news the chief received was that 1/3 of the land of the small country where the accident occurred was completely destroyed and even affected its neighboring countries. Not only the buildings were damaged, but also the people nearby. The small country was in chaos, and it was impossible to send rescue in time. The few small countries nearby that were not affected either did not have the ability or were trying to protect themselves. The chief was the only one who volunteered, but he declined the other party's kindness. The two countries have always had cavities, and the chief did not dare to use Lin Fan's safety to block the other party's kindness. If Lin Fan was still alive, country E can be trusted, but after the whole world has seen the power of mechas, the general manager is also afraid to gamble. In the end, air support was sent directly from country HOV, who couldn't contact Antonio, also sent a plane. He said hello to the chaotic little G and went there regardless of whether the other party agreed or not. Antonio, who tried hard to search in the dark ruins, finally found Lin Fan. She was lying in a sunken pit, covered with a thick layer of dust, and there was almost nothing left of the mecha on her back. If it weren't for the special light of the white armor of Xingqian, Antonio might not have found her. He rushed over and looked at her exposed cervical vertebrae like a human specimen, and the entire ribs were stained with dust. He could even see the internal organs under the bones and the flesh under the mecha shell. Antonio never knew what the inside of his mecha looked like, but now that he saw it, he would rather never know. Lin Fan's body was severely damaged, and blood flowed out along the broken armor and gathered into a pool. She was almost soaked in blood. A lot of dust covered her body and the blood, forming a bloody quagmire. Antonio wanted to carry her out, but he didn't know how to start. It seemed that, as long as he stretched out his hand, Lin Fan would break into pieces. Fortunately, the Mecha was still in state. He could see the pulsation of his internal organs, and the self-repair of his body was also continuing, all of which proved that Lin Fan was still alive and well. It's good to be alive. It's good to be alive. Antonio thought about it, and still couldn't let Lin Fan lie in this environment. After he removed the Mecha, he took off his clothes, and wrapped Lin Fan's exposed back. He transformed into a Palo again, carefully picked up the person in a prone position, and adjusted the position as gently as possible. He held her thighs like holding a child, let her head rest on his neck, wrapped the open back tightly with his clothes, and carefully protected it with both hands. It's better to suffer a short pain than a long pain. No matter how powerful the self-repair is, it still requires good medical conditions. She couldn't just watch Lin Fan lie here. Should we go to country P or country H? Antonio hesitated for a moment, then made a decision. He carefully hugged Lin Fan, and at the same time, he tightly grasped the star gun and soared into the sky. Why is it always Lin Fan who gets hurt? Is it because she is the protagonist? I will reflect on this. Chapter 588 Empty Joy. H is probably the most powerful in the world. Antonio had never flown near country H in the form of Apollo before, and was afraid of being discovered by the ubiquitous cameras, so he had no idea where to go. Fortunately, country H is in the southeast of Europe, so he has no problem identifying this basic direction. In the howling wind, the broken stars quietly clung to Apollo's body, and warm blood dripped down the outer shell of the Mecha. Antonio seemed to be able to feel the trajectory of them sliding on his outer armor, which was so hot that it hurt his heart. He pressed his arms as much as possible on his back covered by clothes, lying horizontally to reduce wind resistance, and flew to country H at the maximum speed. In Antonio's impression, the medical and technological means of country H are undoubtedly inferior to those of country P. He once wanted to take Lin Fan directly to country P, so that she could receive the best treatment. But thinking of OV, he hesitated again. Lin Fan, whom he met in country H, was very cheerful, and his eyes sparkled when he talked about his hometown and friends. In addition, OV mentioned before that Lin Fan had not said a word to him during the visit earlier, and had been hiding in the later period, showing obvious resistance. In this case, if Lin Fan was sent to OV, would she be willing? Antonio put himself in the situation, and soon got the answer. If he were Lin Fan, he would also choose a place he was familiar with familiar people, so that he could receive treatment with peace of mind. That Wu's eyes followed Lin Fan all the time, sending her to the person who loved her. Maybe Lin Fan's injury would not heal so quickly, but she would not suffer additional harm. Moreover, he had been in H country for so long before, and he felt that it was not as bad as P country claimed. Otherwise OV would not be so nervous. Antonio did not dwell too much on the issue of responsibility and position. He only knew that Lin Fan risked his life to protect his friend, and everything now should be based on Lin Fan's interests first. As for OV's instructions, who cares? Antonio was also very fast. It took only more than 7 minutes from Kiev to entering H country's airspace. Although he was happy to see the familiar terrain, how to send people out became a problem. Where should he be sent? How to notify them? Antonio's video system was completely destroyed in the explosion. He couldn't possibly run to the square of Sigio City and shout, could he? In the past, H country had a large population, but now, the streets of the city were empty. Where could he find people? And where to send it was also a problem. Sigio City? That place was the capital of H country, where important people lived, and the medical conditions must be very good. But if he approached without notification, he might be targeted. The firepower of H country was not much different from that of P country, so he was not afraid, but Lin Fan was now in a broken defense, and could not withstand further damage. Or maybe Gao, the city where Lin Fan had been staying before. Her friends should still be there. Antonio quickly adjusted the direction. As he expected, the telescope captured it as he entered the airspace of H country. The UFO is approaching rapidly. The main control received the notification from the space agency, notified it in time, and cut the trajectory map to the big screen. Everyone looked over immediately. Such a fast speed. Is Xingqian back? The person who spoke was full of hope. The speed is close, and the angle of entry is also consistent. It is very likely Xingqian. The technicians replied quickly. Almost everyone cheered. Xingqian has no contact. Maybe the video system is damaged. Someone said with a smile. With such a fast speed, it should be safe and sound. There is no problem. The person who had been sweating all the time also breathed a sigh of relief and laughed. The chief was not as optimistic as them. He asked the telescope to release the signal capture map. Antonio was flying level and fast. From the cross-sectional map, it was not particularly clear, but the external dimensions were roughly consistent with the data of the Mecha. The chief was almost relieved at this time. It should be Xingqian who came back. It couldn't be Apollo. Everyone was immersed in the joy that Xingqian survived the disaster and didn't pay much attention to the captured object on the screen turning to Gao. The Special Affairs Office was originally in Gao, and Xingqian's medical team and research team were there. She seemed to have been injured before. It was normal to rush back to treat the injury as soon as possible when the communication was disconnected. Thinking of this, some people have realized that something is wrong. Xingqian was injured before. Can she still fly so fast? Special Affairs Office. ZHU Kunjan narrowed his eyes when he saw the track on the big screen suddenly turn downward. Notify Wenji to prepare. He first ordered the medical team to stand by, and then ordered the technicians who were chatting in front of him with a relaxed look. Who can analyze the image? Substitute the 3D image of Xingqian into it for analysis. The lively information room suddenly became quiet, and then the intensive keyboard tapping sound rang out. Do you think Wang Fengfeng is not good at this? And turned his head to ask, isn't that Lin Fan? My intuition is not. ZHU Kunjan has no scruples in front of his own people. She has never flown like this. Lin Fan's flight data is countless, some vertical up and down, and some level flight, with her head down and looking down. But the outline shape transmitted now does not look like her previous posture. It's a bit strange, and the chest is too thick. ZHU Kunjan feels that there is a problem. As a group of people who are most familiar with Xingqian, he found something wrong at a glance. But without confirmation, he couldn't easily pour cold water on the main control, so he could only analyze it himself first. Besides, if Lin Fan wants to come back, it's impossible for him to take a long detour from above. I suspect that it's not Lin Fan. ZHU Kunjan said in a deep voice. If it's not Lin Fan, then Wang Fengfeng turned his head and looked back at the rapidly approaching light spot on the screen. Could it be Apollo? Why would Apollo come to their country H? Where is Lin Fan? Everyone became nervous again, and soon, the picture analysis was roughly analyzed. Substitute the star data and find that the one below is in a flying posture with its back facing down and its front facing up. The technician said, but I feel that the data cannot be completely inserted, and it is very likely not a star. In addition, there is something superimposed on the top of the Mecha, but the volume and outline do not look like a star, and the specific posture cannot be determined. Because no matter what, the big wings of a star cannot be hidden. The most conspicuous thing about the Mecha man is the 3 pairs of huge geometric wings on his back, which cannot be folded up at all. What if her wings are removed? Wu Yusen, who had been in a daze for a long time, suddenly spoke. If she lost her wings, can the data be put in? Wu Yusen never dared to take chances, thinking that Lin Fan could survive such a strong explosion intact despite being seriously injured. The technician knocked again and spoke with some difficulty. It's not enough to just remove the wings. We have to cut off a large layer of the back structure to make it almost. Wu Yusen stood up with a swoosh, and the stool fell to the ground with a loud noise. He wanted to rush out with red eyes, but he took back his steps and looked at ZHU Kunjan. Don't panic. ZHU Kunjan was as steady as a rock. I'll send someone to pick them up. Anton was a good boy, and he was thinking about Lin Fan. Ovi would be furious if he knew about it. Chapter 589 is back. Did Apollo send Lin Fan Xingqian back? The joyful atmosphere in the control room was interrupted by the speculation that Xingqian was seriously injured. Although it was unbelievable, judging from the 3D puzzle of the Special Affairs Office, it was indeed as they speculated. Yes. It is said that Apollo's real body is friends with Xingqian's real body in real life. We can guess each other's identity, and he should be able to guess it too. ZHU Kunjin had a definite inference, and must have informed the control room in time. Friendship? In the control room, everyone had different thoughts. But if Apollo comes here at this time, if he has other ideas. The head of the security department hesitated. We are also prepared. ZHU Kunjin replied, so I suggest that we continue to raise the defense level to the highest level to prevent accidents. The chief nodded and signaled the security minister to do so. Apollo doesn't know how to enter the special affairs office, right? Let alone Apollo, who among those present, except for the people of the special affairs office, can't know where their door is? Don't worry, we have sent people to meet the escort. ZHU Kunjin was calm. Those who understand will understand. This escort, because Apollo's motives are unclear, is not just an escort in the simple sense. After ZHU Kunjin finished his report, he no longer cared about the general control and focused on Gaohi's sky eye. Here it comes. Someone noticed the stream of light in the sky and switched the camera over. Although it was fleeting, everyone still saw the white stream of light in the black and red blocks, which was the color of the stars. Send a signal. ZHU Kunjin ordered. Antonio was worrying about where to go, and then he saw a white flare suddenly rise somewhere. He quickly scanned the surroundings and found nothing else unusual. Then, another flare rose, as if to prompt him to go there. Is it there? Antonio's hesitant heart was fixed when he saw that all the cameras on the ground were moving with him. It should be that the H side discovered it and was guiding it in advance. In H country, Lin Fan should not be in danger, and he should be the one in danger. He smiled bitterly, without hesitation, and rushed towards the direction of the flare. It was a mountain forest with dense trees. Antonio began to slow down, but as soon as he approached, he found a foreign object approaching in the air. He quickly changed direction, stood up straight, and turned the spear forward with the hand holding Lin Fan's leg. As a result, he saw a Birdman, flapping his wings, hanging in the air far away, holding up a sign with an arrow, as if to guide him in the direction of advance. The wings were not the wings of a Mecha like this, but large fleshy wings covered with feathers. Even though Antonio was very anxious for Lin Fan, he couldn't help but look back. If OV was still online, he really wanted to say to him, look, an angel. Damn, the angel couldn't be from H country, right? What about God? Antonio's mind was a little confused for a moment. He lowered his altitude in the direction indicated, and soon saw the second Birdman holding a sign. This time the Birdman's wings were smaller, and it seemed that he was not of the same species. Further ahead, there was a person without wings floating in the air, without holding a sign, and I don't know how he made a fluorescent arrow to guide him from a distance. That distance allowed him to see the direction clearly without feeling threatened, and it was just right. After he passed, these people followed behind him, but their speed was far slower than Apollo. Following the instructions of the crowd, Antonio quickly found the entrance to the special passage. Looking at the narrow passage with bright lights, he hesitated. He just saw Lin Fan's blood dripping down, falling continuously in the white passage, and the bright scarlet seemed to cover his vision. That's it. Even if it's a sea of fire and a mountain of swords, I have to go in for Lin Fan. Antonio rushed in with all his strength, leaving everyone behind. At the end of the passage, a group of people in different costumes were waiting silently, and in the middle was Wenji, who was pushing a medical cart and wearing a big white robe. When they saw the strange Mecha appear in their field of vision, everyone secretly tensed up. Apollo is one size larger than Xingqian, and the black and red color scheme on his body has a greater visual impact, like a typical evil color scheme. When he really got close, the sense of oppression made even those who often faced Xingqian feel uncomfortable. But when they saw him holding the star gun in his arms, which was no longer in its original form, everyone suppressed their discomfort and rushed forward. Antonio also felt the pressure of the sword being drawn. He knew that the other party was afraid of him, so he let go and threw the star gun to the ground. The star gun was not as light as it looked on the surface. He didn't think anyone could easily pick it up, not to mention that both parties were unfamiliar with each other. Putting down the weapon was the first step to show goodwill. "Hey, guys, I think you should check on her condition quickly," he said in a tone as relaxed as possible. "Our friend is not in a good condition." What are they afraid of? Being surrounded by so many strange people, he should be afraid, okay. The medical staff led by Wu Yusen and Wenji had already rushed up, but they were completely unable to do anything in the face of the huge mecha. Antonio wanted to put Lin Fan on the medical bed, but as soon as he put her legs on it, the fragile bracket could not support the weight of the star gun and stepped on it directly. What a close call. If he hadn't held her tightly with both hands, Lin Fan would have fallen. Antonio curled his lips, knowing that the weight of the mecha itself was an insurmountable problem, so he had no choice but to put the person down. "Hey, Lin, you're home, safe. You can take back the mecha." He knelt on one knee and slowly put the person down. In just a moment, a pool of blood had gathered on the ground. Wu Yusen wanted to help, but he knew that in front of the mecha, he would only cause trouble if he went forward, so he could only clench his fists and pretend to be calm. It was not easy to lay Xingqian flat, and Apollo also had many spikes on his body. It was easy to hurt Xingqian. Fortunately, the people from the Special Affairs Office were helping, and there were many people with superpowers around who used their superpowers to support Xingqian's limbs and use gentler forces to make her as comfortable as possible. The moment Apollo let go of his hand, the clothes covering Xingqian's back slipped open, revealing the tattered and dirty back inside, and brought out a large pool of blood. Many people were unprepared to see the exposed internal organs and bones, and they couldn't stand it, so they turned around and started vomiting. Wenji was stunned for a moment, and quickly called the medical team to stop the bleeding. Xingqian can heal herself, but excessive blood loss will endanger her life. Moreover, such a dirty wound requires cleaning. They must reduce Lin Fan's damage as quickly as possible, so that she can recover faster. Even Ban Hei, who was behind, forgot his passion for scientific research at this moment. He rushed up to help without studying the internal structure of Xingqian. Wu Yusen's eyes were red and his whole body was shaking. Once again, this is the second time that Lin Fan is facing life and death, and he can't do anything. Wu Yusen knew that he couldn't help, but his feet seemed to be nailed to the ground and he couldn't walk away. Antonio finally breathed a sigh of relief when he saw the medical staff rushing over with neat and professional techniques. When he looked up, he saw Wu Yusen, his only acquaintance, standing aside, and he greeted him directly. "Hey, Wu. Come over and call Lin. You two are more familiar with each other, so you should be able to make her feel safe and withdraw the mecha. Her body can't stand the consumption of the mecha. The mecha has a sense of protection. It will always protect the body, except when it dies, or when its self-consciousness is relaxed." Lin Fan was half disabled, but when he was not dead yet, the mecha was still hanging on his body. It was protecting him, while absorbing his energy. It was really miserable. Chapter 590 Loss of Combat Strength. Get out of the way. A roar came from the back of the crowd. Everyone made way, and found that it was Lezing Yuan-King with an angry face, and they hurriedly avoided him. Lezing Yuan-King saw Lin Fan's miserable condition at a glance, and his ugly face looked like he wanted to kill someone. Apollo's oppression was not a problem for him at all. He lightly lifted his eyelids, but scared the other party back 2 steps. "What are you still standing there for?" Lezing Yuan-King scolded Wu Yusen. This shout just broke Wu Yusen's restraint. He took 2 steps forward and knelt beside Lin Fan's ear. There was only blood in that place, and the ear could not be seen at all. The edge of the broken mask revealed equally broken skin and flesh. Blood dripped down the exposed wide mandible, and the tendons in the neck were only connected at a small point. The activated cells were desperately repairing, and the broken parts were wriggling and growing, which looked weird and disgusting. Lin Fan. Wu Yusen choked up and carefully leaned over to the bloody hole that should be the ear and whispered, "I'm Wu Yusen. You have returned to the Special Affairs Office. You are safe." Wenji and others kept cleaning the exposed internal organs and stopping the bleeding, but suddenly their hands were empty and the huge mecha suddenly disappeared. Antonio didn't expect that Wu Yusen would achieve the effect as soon as he spoke, but Lin Fan, who had regained his human form, looked worse. "Quick. Send her to the operating room." There are too many bacteria here, and it is easy to get complications. Wen Ji shouted. But when everyone stretched out their hands, they found that Lin Fan's body was torn everywhere, and they didn't dare to touch her at all. They were afraid that, if they were not careful, they would tear off the part that was finally connected. Get out of the way. Lezing Yuan-King looked at the little girl covered in blood, and the figure of the little junior sister covered in blood appeared in his mind again. Lin Fan was suddenly lifted up by an invisible force, and floated steadily in the air. Where are you going? Hearing Lezing Yuan-King's impatient voice, everyone realized that it was the eldest brother who took action. As soon as Wen Ji opened his mouth, he was grabbed by the collar and floated into the air. The others saw the eldest brother carrying their boss and the seriously injured patient disappear in front of them, so they quickly packed up their things and chased after him. Wu Yusen also wanted to chase him, but after running 2 steps, he felt a hand on his shoulder. He twisted his hand and was about to kick, but he saw familiar red hair in his peripheral vision and stopped his foot. Ouch! A high-pitched ghost cry made him let go of his hand in time. He turned around and saw Antonio, who had regained his human form at some point, holding his hand and howling. Oh Wu, you are too cruel. Antonio wanted to cry. I just wanted to ask you for a piece of clothing. He took off his clothes and gave them to Lin Fan. Now he only had a pair of shorts on his body. If there was no one around now, he would be embarrassed to change back. Hey, where did all those people go just now? Wu Yusen saw that Antonio had a confused expression, but his face was pale and exhausted. Come to think of it, this guy has also been fighting for a long time, also experienced the explosion, and brought Lin Fan back. On the ground, his clothes were stained with blood and could no longer be worn. In this case, it would not be appropriate to leave him behind. Wu Yusen glanced at the direction where Lin Fan left and calmed down. Although he was anxious, he could not help at this time. Lin Fan was healing himself and should not be in danger of life. Instead, the eldest brother, who was originally arranged to suppress Antonio, the unstable factor, left. He took off his coat and threw it to Antonio. Antonio took it and wrapped it around his waist, covering the front, but not the back, still very uncomfortable. Hey, man, can you find me a set of clothes to change into? The kind that can cover the whole body? Antonio smiled bitterly. You don't want me to put on the clothes stained with Lin's blood, do you? Wu Yusen quickly picked up the bloody clothes on the ground and rolled them up in his hands. Don't worry, I will wash them and give them to you. If you don't mind, you can wear my clothes first. That's great. Antonio walked forward and wanted to put his arm around Wu Yusen's shoulders, but he let him go in time. The empty hand naturally turned to scratch his head. If possible, can you give me another bath? After hearing the confirmed order in the headset, Wu Yusen turned around and called Antonio. Let's go. Go to my place first, take a bath, change clothes, and eat. Antonio hurried to catch up. I want to go to Celine. After taking a bath, I wonder when she can be repaired. Wu Yusen suddenly stopped and asked him, do all you mechas have this repair function? I do. Antonio felt that there was nothing to hide, but I haven't been injured so badly, so I'm not sure what Lin's condition is. Wu Yusen turned around silently and led the way, thinking about the last time Lin Fan was stabbed, compared to this time, which one was more serious? The control room has seen Lin Fan's latest situation through the Special Affairs office. Such a serious injury made everyone speechless. If it weren't for Lin Fan's special physique, she would definitely not survive. And now, even if she didn't die, she should have lost her combat power in a short time. The chief hesitated for a moment, but still asked, are you sure there's no danger? Probably not, Zhu Kunjin rarely said without a smile on his face. Most of her internal organs are not injured, or have been almost repaired, but it takes time for the bones and muscles in her back to regenerate. Now the doctors are assisting with hemostasis and debridement. There is too much dust from the explosion, which has infected her wounds. It takes too much time to rely on her own rejection. We will replenish energy and try to speed up her recovery. But in the short term, she probably can't continue to fight. Everyone knew what was going on, but it was still frustrating to say it out loud. How is Apollo? The chief asked again. He showed a relatively appropriate attitude. At present, I don't think he is very dangerous. ZHU Kunjin replied, I have asked the big guy who took action in Zugang before to help keep an eye on him. If he makes any unusual movements, he can be clamped in time. Everyone thought of the young big guy with a sword flashing. How sure are you? The chief asked. More than 70%. ZHU Kunjin replied, Xingchen can't beat him. The chief nodded and asked about the bionic armor. Are they still exploring the aircraft? Yes, the interior of the aircraft is too large, and their exploration is not even halfway through. The chief was silent. He knew that Lin Fan absorbed 818 to speed up his recovery when he was injured last time. So he had the idea of coating the bionic armor just now. But now it seems that it still won't work. Xingchen can't continue to fight, and the bionic armor as a substitute can't be offline at this time. Not to mention that the operation time is not enough. The chief turned back to ZHU Kunjin. Later. I need you to worry more. It's my duty. ZHU Kunjin's mouth curled slightly. The chief looked at the huge enchantment countdown inside secretly. There are still 6 days left, and it's not even dawn, but Xingchen has fallen. Time, it's passing so slowly. Today I received a comment from Baozi saying that I was not concise enough. I realized it before, and I paid attention to changing it every time, but I went back to it while writing. Well, I'm afraid this process is not easy. How about this chapter? Is it okay? Most of the time, I'm writing alone, and I have no idea what the result will be. Maybe when I can naturally succinctly write, I will have mastered the skill. Haha, keep it up. Chapter 591, Attitudes of All Parties. After Lezing Yuanqing sent Lin Fan to the operating room, he watched outside for a while. After the doctors were all in the right state, he left. ZHU Kunjin gave him a task to keep an eye on someone, but he was busy with Lin Fan's matter just now and didn't pay attention to it. The black Mecha before seemed to be the one encountered in Zugang. Lezing Yuanqing didn't pay too much attention to the battle situation and had no idea who Antonio was. He found Wu Yusen's office without much effort. Is it him? Looking at the foreigner who was disheveled and wiping his hair behind Wu Yusen, he asked. Wu Yusen knew what he was asking and nodded respectfully. Yes, big brother. The second time Antonio saw this angry man, he felt a little familiar. He walked over and was about to ask, but he saw him stretch out his hand and flick it towards him in the air. Antonio looked around and didn't see anything on his body. When he looked up again, the man had gone far away. He asked inexplicably, hey, Wu, what was this guy doing just now? I always feel like I've seen him somewhere. Of course, Wu Yusen couldn't tell him that the senior brother had just placed some kind of restriction on him. It was probably a special method that allowed the senior brother to appear directly beside Antonio as soon as he transformed. The director asked the senior brother to keep an eye on him, but how could the senior brother follow a stranger all the time? As the only two people Antonio was familiar with, he was the best candidate to keep an eye on him. Nothing, he just said hello to you. Wu Yusen fooled him. Where have you seen him? This guy is a dead otaku. Is it popular to say hello like this now? Antonio looked strange and then began to recall. I don't know, I always feel that he looks familiar. But you Orientals all look the same. Maybe I remembered it wrong. Orientals always have a sense of face blindness when looking at Westerners, and Westerners are the same. Unless it is a face with very obvious features. Lezing Yuanqing's face is actually very distinctive, and it should be remembered deeply and not easy to recognize. But Antonio ran so fast that he didn't see what the person looked like. Of course, Wu Yusen didn't bother to explain. Seeing that the person was almost cleaned up, he took him to the operating room to see Lin Fan. Lin Fan was covered under the green drape, and nothing could be seen. The two watched for a long time in the observation room outside, but they couldn't see anything, and they became more and more anxious. When Antonio changed his stance for the 50th time, Wu Yusen took him out. I'll take you to eat first. You need to recover your physical energy, right? Wu Yusen was afraid that the consequence of his anxiety would be that he would turn into Apollo, which would cause unnecessary trouble. Antonio thought about it and felt that there was no point in him staying, so he followed Wu Yusen obediently. So are you members of a special organization? On the way, he finally couldn't help asking. Special passages, people with strange skills, and a complex building that was obviously underground and no less advanced than the starfish building. Wu Yusen glanced at him and replied lightly, "Yeah, just like you." Antonio was a relatively simple person. In his mind, he classified the Special Affairs Office as a place similar to the Starfish Building in Country P. "I see that there are quite a few strange people among your members, such as those with wings, those who can float in the air and glow, and that fierce man just now who can take people flying." Wu Yusen couldn't say that he hated Antonio, nor did he like him. But objectively speaking, he has been helping Country H, and there is nothing wrong with his character. In addition, Wu Yusen was grateful for saving Lin Fan this time, but he was also wary of him, but he wanted him to be closer to Country H, so he started to tell him the stories he had used to fool Li Chunhua. Antonio had never heard of these. He was so stunned by Wu Yusen's tricks that he exclaimed, "Country H is really a magical place." The cafeteria was almost cleared out because of Antonio's arrival. Under the double attack of food and stories, Antonio's original good impression of Country H became even stronger. OV would be angry if he knew, right? Oh, speaking of OV, should he tell him? Antonio thought about it and decided to forget it. If he knew that he had rescued Lin Fan to Country H, he would probably scold him, right? Antonio chose to escape, but the H side was very considerate and informed OV in time. As expected, OV almost vomited blood. Such a good opportunity. Is Antonio full of shit in his head? OV's original worry turned into anger, but Antonio couldn't contact him, so he could only catch him and vent. It goes without saying that Country P is in dire straits, and Country H is also gloomy. Xingqian's serious injury still made them passive. Gro's wave of attacks hurt others and himself. Will its next wave of attacks be more upgraded? The Special Affairs Office agreed to take action. During the first round of attacks, everyone saw the strength of the Special Affairs Office. Can it cope with the upgraded attacks? Worried. But there was nothing they could do. In the Special Affairs Office, the news of Xingqian's injury spread quickly. All the fighters felt even heavier in their hearts. Most of them knew about Xingqian's situation. At first, because a Mecha came from a non-scientific department, almost everyone paid attention to her. In addition, many people went to meet them just now and saw Xingqian's miserable condition with their own eyes. Later, during the transportation, blood dripped all the way on the aisle, and many non-combatants also saw it. Xingqian was like this. If it were them, there would probably be nothing left, right? For a moment, everyone was sad and angry, and they hurried to accumulate energy to prepare for the next wave of attacks. The video of Lin Fan's injury was sent to Jin Sichin's mobile phone and was seen by the ugly woman who passed by accidentally. Seeing that Jin Sichin was hiding, she thought it was a shameful little video, and she directly projected the screen of his mobile phone on the big screen to play it with evil taste. After seeing Lin Fan's miserable condition, the ugly woman who always called her a dead girl had a flat expression and didn't speak for a long time, and finally walked to the front of the world tree to meditate. Jin Sichin saw that the ends of her hair were connected to the trunk of the world tree and didn't know what she was doing, but he thought it might be a good thing. Everyone was waiting in a variety of emotions. And Gro, thousands of miles high in the sky, was also erupting in an unprecedented quarrel. The conservatives felt that after so many attacks, they had not gained any actual benefits, but had suffered a lot of losses, with the investment greater than the gains. They should stop the losses in time, leave early, and find the next target. The radicals felt that they had paid so much, how could they justify their previous efforts without getting some returns? Moreover, the two guys jumping up and down on this little broken planet blew up the aircraft themselves. With such an explosion, the two of them would have died. The opponents had been dealt with, and it was extremely stupid for them to retreat at this time. The two sides quarreled, and neither could convince the other. Langsing won a short respite in their quarrel until the next attack came. These two pictures today are not long-winded, right? I'm a little confused now. Oops, I'm numb from writing. Chapter 592 Visit. Wang Fengfeng gently pushed the door open and walked in. He glanced at the red-haired Antonio lying on the sofa, who had fallen asleep at some point, and tiptoed to Wu Yusen's side, whispering, "How is he? Not awake yet?" Wu Yusen saw that it was Wang Fengfeng and turned back to look at Lin Fan intently. Wang Fengfeng looked at the transparent box in front of him that looked like a crystal coffin, and there was a thin blanket covering it, covering Lin Fan inside with only the black top of his head. He quietly walked to the other side and took a closer look. What did Wenji say? Is he out of danger? There were many electronic devices connected to the outside of the box, but Wang Fengfeng couldn't understand them. He casually lifted the thin blanket covering it, but was frightened by the red muscle tissue underneath, and his hands trembled. Wu Yusen pulled the sheet that was tilted to one side and carefully covered the area below Lin Fan's neck. Didn't anyone tell you that you can't lift a girl's blanket casually? Wang Fengfeng's face flushed, and he didn't know whether he was frightened by the vivid body structure just now, or was ashamed of his rude behavior. Yes, I'm sorry, I didn't think so much. My fault. He saw that Lin Fan had already left the operating room. Although she was lying in the sterile box, since someone was allowed to accompany her, her condition should be stable. But there was a sheet blocking the box, and he could only see the black hair on Lin Fan's head. He couldn't see anything about her specific condition. He was in a hurry and forgot that Lin Fan must be naked now. However, although he caught a glimpse, he didn't see anything. Lin Fan had an injury on her back and was lying in the sterile box. In addition, the moment he opened the sheet, the scene was too exciting. Wang Fengfeng only saw her shoulder, and he was so scared that he withdrew his hand and covered the sheet again. So strictly speaking, he really didn't see anything he shouldn't have seen. Wu Yusen was focused on Lin Fan and didn't bother with him. Wang Fengfeng took a while to speak again. Has it not healed completely yet? It will take some time. Wu Yusen straightened his head and carefully revealed his healed neck. During the cleaning in the operating room, the internal organs have basically healed, but the wound on the back is too large, and it will take a lot of effort for the muscles, blood vessels and skin to regenerate. Wang Fengfeng took 2 steps forward. The skin on Lin Fan's neck and the back of her head was a soft pink, which was obviously different from her original fair skin. From the irregular boundary lines, it was easy to tell which parts were newly grown. Especially obvious was the large bald area below the occipital bone. It should have been full of hair, but now there was only a piece of pink skin. Lin Fan originally had smooth long hair, not black, but the kind of black that was a little yellowish. She was not a person who loved to dress up, and she didn't cherish her hair that much. She usually just tied a bun on the top of her head casually. Because of her mediocre technique and careless attitude, the bun was often not delicate, often loose and fluffy, tilted here and there, and very casual. Wang Fengfeng laughed at her more than once. Lin Fan also said that she wanted to cut her hair, but Wu Yusen and the others didn't know why they all wanted her to keep it. She was used to having long hair, and it wasn't too troublesome, so she never cut it. Now, because of the injury, the scalp on the back of the head has grown back, and 1/3 of the hair is bald. The hair in other places was also burned unevenly because of the explosion. Later, when cleaning the wound, the operating room had to be disinfected, and the hair of different lengths was roughly trimmed. But those who hold the scalpel can save lives, but it is a luxury to expect them to trim a good-looking hairstyle. So now Lin Fan's hair on the back of her head is long and short, like a dog's, which is very ugly. Even though Wang Fengfeng knows that Lin Fan doesn't care about her hair and appearance, he is not sure how she will feel when she sees this mess of hair. After all, she is a girl. If it were his head, he wouldn't be able to accept it all at once. But, think about it in a positive way, her life is saved after all. Hair will always grow again. Seeing that, Wang Fengfeng didn't dare to look down, but just stared at Lin Fan's head with his eyes straight. Wu Yusen took the initiative to speak. This girl is most afraid of pain. Wang Fengfeng looked up at him. She's afraid of dirt. Wu Yusen's voice was light, his eyes were red. This time she has suffered a lot. It's a good thing that she doesn't wake up now. Wang Fengfeng sighed. Yes, at this time, it's also a pain to wake up. He looked at the several bottles of liquid medicine hanging on the sterile box at the same time, roughly looked at the names of the medicines and asked, is it just anti-inflammatory and energy replenishment now? There are a lot of energy supplements. Well, Minister Wen said that they can't do much. Wu Yusen took off his glasses and rubbed his face. We still hope that Lin Fan's own cell recovery ability, so the main thing is to replenish energy. Wang Fengfeng nodded. It seems it will be difficult for her to recover in a short time. Lin Fan's skin and flesh haven't grown back yet. Even if she grows back, it's impossible for her to stand up immediately and transform to kill the enemy. The blood and flesh are all there. Although his life is saved, it is not easy to fully recover. Wu Yusen nodded. I heard that the higher-ups have adjusted the emergency plan. Yes, the director has pulled the senior brother out. Wang Fengfeng couldn't help but tremble with fear when talking about this. He is sitting with us now. We are so scared that we dare not breathe. So he found an opportunity to run out to take a breath and see how Lin Fan is doing. The senior brother likes Lin Fan very much. Wu Yusen looked at the ugly back of Lin Fan and smiled bitterly. It's normal for him to want to make a decision for her. That's right. Wang Fengfeng agreed. Although he was really ruthless at the beginning, it can be seen that he thinks highly of Lin Fan. I just don't know if the senior brother can beat Gro. Wang Fengfeng rubbed his chin. Big brother can't go to space, right? Wu Yusen shook his head slowly. No matter how powerful he is, he can't go directly with Grogan. That's right. No matter how powerful Big Brother is, he has to be in the air environment. Wang Fengfeng felt a little regretful. Otherwise, maybe. He raised his eyes and saw Antonio curled up on the sofa, sleeping unconsciously, and raised his chin to ask him, how is he? Wu Yusen looked back. He's fine at the moment, but he's also very tired. I guess he has some internal injuries. It should be. Wang Fengfeng looked at Antonio's obviously unhealthy face. To be honest, we didn't expect him to bring Lin Fan back. Who would have thought of it? Even Wu Yusen, who was more familiar with him, didn't expect it. I heard that old P is mad over there, and he's not going to find him again. Wang Fengfeng gloated. Does this mean that his position is leaning towards us? Wu Yusen only took the time to think about this matter at this time. He stared at Antonio for a long time before shaking his head and said, his position is not leaning towards us, but towards Lin Fan. Is there any difference? Wang Fengfeng didn't react at once. Isn't Lin Fan's position the same as Party H's position? Just as Wu Yusen was about to say something, a quick ring rang out. Antonio jumped up from the sofa, figured out the direction, and rushed to Lin Fan's side. Wu Yusen stopped him and answered the phone. Then he sank his face and said to Antonio, who looked puzzled, the attack has started again. Chapter 593 Li Chunhua's discovery. 5 days before the barrier was opened, the sun rose in the early morning. The sun shone on the earth, but no one felt warm. Gro's new round of attacks was huge. After a long argument, they finally reached a consensus. Since they were going to fight, they should not increase the stakes again and again, but directly launch a heavy attack to make the people on the small broken star defenseless. So, when the huge, centipede-like multi-segmented long beetle flew down from the clouds and revealed its body, everyone on the ground was stunned. How could there be such a big bug? The size was not smaller than the initial advance ship, but even longer. The big centipede swung its long tentacles and moved its dense legs on both sides, swimming in the air like paddling. The ground firepower hit it, but it was useless except for splashing sparks, and there was not even a trace of movement. This time, perhaps because he felt that the Mecha people who posed a threat to them were gone, Gro chose developed cities such as Sigio City and Hua Province as the established targets. But perhaps he still had some concerns and deliberately avoided Gao. Various fires flashed in the sky above Sigio City. Because they were inside the city, they dared not easily deploy high-powered missiles. Medium and short-range armored vehicles and their formations became the main force this time. However, no matter how hard they tried, the attack did not achieve any good results. The only good news was that the big centipede shuttled in the air and did not launch any attacks. But no one dared to take it lightly. After all, no one thought that this thing came to Langsing just for sightseeing. The H country's general control mobilized various forces in an orderly manner, allowing the bionic armor team that had rested for a night to move forward in time. OVP country cursed and mobilized his own Mecha warriors while asking H side to call Apollo. He had already known the news that Xingchen was seriously injured. Although he was very sorry to lose a major helper, it was ultimately H country's loss and had nothing to do with him. Isn't his Apollo still fine? Wu Yusen didn't dare to take Antonio to the information room. Wang Fengfeng used his mobile phone to call out the real-time picture and projected it on the wall of the room. On the screen of Sigio City, the bionic armor was flying in the air and pounced on the big centipede. At this time, something strange happened. Where the centipede's legs were extended, the shell suddenly opened up and shadows popped out from inside. Fu Guang quickly rushed forward to intercept it and quickly blocked the opponent's path with his three-edged thorns. Before he could see what it was, he was forced back by a shadow coming from the head. After he retreated to a safe distance and took a closer look, he found that the opponent was a scorpion-like creature with dragonfly-like wings. What he just swung out was its tail with a hook. The scorpion tails on Langsing are poisonous, and it is unknown whether this thing has any. But according to previous experience, even if it is not poisonous, its strength is enough to easily penetrate Langsing's ordinary defense. Next to it, an unlucky fighter was poked by the scorpion's tail and hung directly on the opponent's tail. Fu Guang watched the scorpion take advantage of the situation to swing its tail and pull the fighter plane wildly and hurried forward to support. The pilot found the right opportunity to parachute, but was almost hit by another monster. Fortunately, Fu Guang arrived in time and stood in front of him. He stabbed the flyman who was stepping on the cockroach monster with familiarity and then cut off the cockroach's head neatly. Looking back at the battlefield, a large number of flymen riding big cockroaches also emerged from the centipede's belly. They are more intelligent than ordinary insect monsters and will attack in a roundabout way. In particular, the attacks fired by their alien energy guns are very strong. Many fighters were hit and crashed when they interfered with the big centipede. The combat power of the Mecha Man is acceptable, but the number is limited after all. Sure enough, after Grow increased the intensity of the attack, Lang Crossing showed a clear disadvantage. The battle situation without the Mecha Man suddenly became difficult. When will Lin Fan arrive? Li Chunhua became more and more anxious. She can't come. Song Ren received a notice from above after the mission was completed last night and answered calmly. What? Does she have another mission? Li Chunhua shouted. Oh my god. Are these guys crazy? They spent all their money on this? She's injured and hasn't woken up yet. Song Ren said it after a moment's hesitation. Originally, the higher-ups only told Song Ren because they didn't want the Mecha team to lose confidence after knowing the truth. Everyone knows that after several successful guards of Xingqian, she is not only a representative of ability, but also a benchmark of confidence. Song Ren originally agreed, but seeing Grow's crazy offensive, and Lin Fan was seriously injured and couldn't come to support. Instead of letting everyone have hope, it's better to burn their boats and fight with all their strength. They can't always rely on Lin Fan. They have to fight independently and face their own abilities. What? There were screams from all sides in the headset, with Li Chunhua's scream being the loudest. When did it happen? Didn't we meet yesterday? Jiu asked directly. Is the injury serious? Is there any danger? It's not life-threatening, but the wound is quite large, and it will take time to recover and regenerate. Song Ren said briefly. I don't know much more. I just know that the person hasn't woken up yet. Everyone immediately thought of the last time Lin Fan was on the verge of death. At that time, she was stabbed through and almost died in the operating room. But after absorbing 818, when she came out of the operating room a few hours later, all the damage to her body was repaired. After they came back yesterday, they read the battle report. They knew that the last aircraft, one disappeared, and the other exploded, causing half of the small country and its neighboring countries to be reduced to ruins. They said at the time that this thing was extremely powerful, but they didn't expect that Lin Fan would be affected by it. If she was injured at that time, with Lin Fan's repair ability, she hasn't healed yet, which shows how serious the injury was at that time. Lin Fan is familiar with them. Knowing that she was seriously injured again, even if her life is not in danger, everyone still has mixed feelings. No one continued to talk, and everyone's mood was a little low for a while. Just when Song Ren wanted to say something to boost morale, Li Chunhua howled first. These damn bastards. I'm going to fight them. He pounced on a flyman, circled its neck and stabbed it. The flyman raised his gun and shot, and before he could react, blood spurted out. Lee Chun-hua grabbed its arm for fear of accidentally hurting his own people, but found that the gun in the unconscious flyman's hand could still continue to fire. Lee Chun-hua was surprised. They had tried the flyman's gun before, but they couldn't shoot it at all. The person in charge of the armaments guessed that there was some kind of specific gene lock in it that only aliens could use. Although everyone felt sorry, they could do nothing about it. Now, Lee Chun-hua unexpectedly discovered that maybe it was not completely hopeless. He held the energy gun in the flyman's hand and aimed at a scorpion monster. The moment he pulled the trigger, the scorpion monster fell down. Lee Chun-hua was ecstatic and tried again. Hey, boss, guess what good thing I found? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 594, Decoding New Weapons. After the others got the news, they immediately tried it out. Song Ren found that the gun could indeed be used directly with the flyman's hand, but when it was changed to his own hand, there was no reaction. So the restriction lock, they guessed, had nothing to do with the life and death of the flyman. The energy gun was indeed useful, but they couldn't keep dragging the flyman's body, right? Song Ren certainly wouldn't pity his opponent's body, he just thought it was a burden. He tried to use the three-edged thorn to tear open the flyman's wrist, but unfortunately the opponent's weak point was only the neck, and he failed after several attempts. Gu took the lead in pressing the flyman's hand and broke his other wrist with the energy gun. Without looking at the internal structure, he used the broken hand to hold the energy gun and was surprised to find that it can be used. The others followed suit and successfully removed the flyman's hand. Gao Fei looked at the mucus dripping down the broken limb with disdain. Although it slid away smoothly on the outer shell of the Yufeng, it was still not so pleasant. If the palm alone can be used, can we disassemble it further? It's a bit annoying to have a hand, he asked. Song Ren was reporting the good news to the main control, and it really caused heated discussion. They had collected many corpses and energy guns of fly people earlier, and kept them, but had not studied them thoroughly. Now they can be used as weapons to attack Grow, which is really great. The person in charge of armaments sent people to get samples, and turned back to answer Gao Fei's question. It should be the palm and the outer armor. There must be one that works. Gu had already started to disassemble it. At this time, he didn't care about being delicate and beautiful. He directly and roughly took out all the tissues in the hand nail, shook them off as much as possible, and then inserted his hand into the deformed three-fingered hand nail. Although the flyman has few fingers, they are thick and long. Putting them on Binglin's not so thin hand, they are still loose. Gu slightly bent his fingers, stuck the finger sleeves at the joints, and quickly put them into the energy gun. Raise your hand to try. It's a gauntlet. Put it on, and it will work. He kicked away the useless body of the flyman, shot the cockroach under his feet in the head, and rushed directly to the next target. When the others heard it, they followed suit. Soon, everyone in the Mecha team used energy guns. The combat effectiveness immediately increased. The energy guns had an immediate effect on small creatures such as scorpion monsters and flymen. Although it was not very obvious on the big centipede, it was better than their own firepower. Several people were flexible and maneuvered, trying to deal with those who were easy to attack. The ground defense below also equipped energy guns at the fastest speed, and launched a counterattack against the low altitude and grounded insects. For a time, the sky and the ground in the 4-9 city were in a mess. Apart from the big centipede, they barely formed a situation of equal strength. But other places were not so lucky. They had not experienced the attack of the flyman, so naturally they did not have any reserve weapons accumulated. Even though Country H informed them of the method of using the energy gun, with the ability of ordinary relaxing people, even if they focused their fire on a flyman, they would still need luck to succeed, which was not that easy. Country P had a similar Mecha army, which was slightly better, but they had not yet found the trick in their first contact with the flyman, and suffered considerable damage. Damn Antonio, why hasn't he come back yet? OV used to think Antonio was a lot of peace of mind, but now he thought he was a bit of a jerk. He wouldn't defect to the H side, would he? This damn guy went to hiding country H without Lin Fan. It was hard not to make OV worried. It shouldn't be. The people next to him were more rational. 2 places in country H were attacked this time, and they were beaten badly. If Apollo really defected to them, he wouldn't just leave it there and not use it. Was Apollo also injured last time? Another person next to him speculated if Xing was seriously injured, Apollo was with her, so there was a high possibility that he would be injured, right? OV was furious and a trace of worry arose again. After thinking about it calmly, he replied with certainty. If he was injured, H side should have informed us. Since they didn't say anything, it's probably not. Could it be that H side concealed the information? Didn't want him to know? Various voices were heard. Just when OV wanted to cut Antonio into pieces, a laughing voice sounded. Hey, guys, I'm back. You. OV didn't care about being angry anymore. He stared at the screen, looking for Apollo's figure. When they saw Apollo's voice and shadow appear on the screen, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. It's good that he's back. OV also decided not to attack this guy at this time. Just when he was about to say a few nice words to encourage him, he suddenly reacted. Are you using H side's video? No wonder he said there was something wrong. The audio path was wrong. Antonio replied without hesitation. Yes, the previous explosion broke the original equipment. I had to come out in a hurry this time, so I borrowed their equipment first. Otherwise, I would have to go back to install new equipment, which would waste time. Antonio was only thinking about killing the enemy. As long as the audiovisual system was good, he didn't care which country it was from. OV was furious, but he couldn't call people back to replace the equipment. The situation in H province was already very bad without the main force, and it was inappropriate to call people back for this. But he was angry. Seeing OV's face was so vicious that he looked like he wanted to eat people. Others didn't dare to get close to him. Not long after, they found that he had recovered as usual, as if nothing had happened. My dear little brother, OV asked Antonio, before he entered the battle circle, are you okay? Are you not injured? We are all worried about you. No, the stars protected me. Antonio told the truth. The P countryman was completely relieved this time. OV's face looked better. What about her? I heard that she was not well. How is she now? Antonio was silent for a while. I don't know. She was still in a coma when I came back. Poor child. God will bless her. OV pretended to perform and then naturally inquired about what he had done in H country and what the other party thought. Antonio didn't know anything. He had been in the special office all the time. Apart from eating and sleeping, he had almost no contact with other people. But when I was rushing back, a man with an angry face suddenly appeared beside me at the moment of transformation. Antonio was frightened when he thought of the scene of the man appearing out of thin air and staring at him, even though he was already a Mecha. Oh, do you know him? OV asked. Is he someone from country H who is monitoring you? I don't know him, but he looks familiar. Antonio didn't care much, but Oriental people all look the same. Except for my familiar friends, everyone else looks the same. He didn't monitor me. He just appeared when I took Xing back, and he didn't show up again. Oh, he even came to say hello to me in the middle. Although he always looks unhappy, he should be worried about Xing. He is still a good person. Antonio thought that the other party always had an angry face, and he was not sure about what he said. As he spoke, he had already seen the army of insects not far away. I heard that the Flyman's energy gun can be used by us. I will help you find some new weapons first. As he said that, he drew out the broadsword from his back and rushed over with high morale. With the addition of Apollo, the situation in the sky above Wu province instantly became relaxed. OV and others finally breathed a sigh of relief, and then they had the mind to pay attention to the situation in other countries on the screen. The result is that you don't know until you see it, and you will be shocked. Why is there a living person floating in the air against gravity, not caring about the aggressive alien creatures at all? Is it a human? Or an alien? Use their guns to shoot them. Hehe. My computer is broken, and the blue screen appears when it starts up. It's dead. It seems that the hard drive is broken. I have a 15-year-old laptop, and it is not cost effective to replace the hard drive. I haven't saved enough money to buy a new computer. A few days ago, I said that it might break down, and I need to configure it and assemble the entire machine. Why did it break before I was ready? Chapter 595. Senior brother takes action. When King was pulled from the information room to the front of the black Mecha, he almost took action. He placed a ban on the red-haired man. As long as he changed his form in the station, he would be teleported here in time to suppress him in time. As a result, ZHU Kunjin's voice sounded in the headset in time. Big brother, he shouted. He is on a rescue mission and needs to return to his G family to defend against the enemy. We can't take action. Lucky Antonio didn't know that he had escaped. He stared at the big brother in confusion until the other party disappeared, and then he left through the special passage with lingering fear. He flashed back to the information room again, and ZHU Kunjin was communicating with the main control. Z province was attacked. Do I need to dispatch people to help? ZHU Kunjin hesitated. People are ready, but the distance is so far. I'm afraid it will take a long time. Everyone should be mentally prepared. What kind of mental preparation? Of course, it is the mental preparation for not being able to catch up, suffering heavy losses, or even annihilation. Z province is located in the southeast of H country, and further west is the neighboring country. It is separated from Geo by half of H country. For a mecha like Xinchen, it may be a matter of minutes. But under normal circumstances, it takes an hour or so to get there by plane. This is when the route is smooth. The Special Affairs Office also has the ability to shrink the Earth into an inch. But on the one hand, there are limitations to its use, and it cannot be used on a large scale. On the other hand, it consumes too much energy. Even if they can get there faster, the ability will be almost consumed. So if they want to go there, they can only choose to take a plane. After hearing this, the main control was also a little hesitant. The military force of the western province is not heavy firepower. Facing the same attack as a 4-9 city is difficult. How can they hold on for an hour or so? The big guy last time. Someone had a flash of inspiration and said, can we ask him to come out to help? ZHU Kunjin turned his head and looked at King, who was listening to the whole process but stood still and slowly shook his head. The people in the main control saw ZHU Kunjin looking to the side and knew what was going on. It would be great if Xinchen was not injured. Someone sighed. If she hadn't been injured, this girl would have been killing enemies in the sky above the western province. King's pupils turned. Is this her original mission? ZHU Kunjin saw that there was a chance and hurriedly replied, yes, if she was fine, she should be helping in the western province now. King retracted his eyes and spat out 2 words in a cold voice. Location. ZHU Kunjin was overjoyed and asked the technician to quickly call up the map of H country and also thoughtfully marked their location and the location of the battle circle in the western province. Big brother. ZHU Kunjin turned around and just opened his mouth to explain. He found that the person was gone. Big brother, try to keep as many of the flyman's palms and energy guns as possible. We need them. He hurriedly shouted into the headset, fearing that if the voice was too low, the other party would not hear it. Seeing that something happened on his side, the main control waited quietly. It was not until ZHU Kunjin turned back that he asked again. How is it? Did the big brother go? He went. ZHU Kunjin breathed a sigh of relief. His speed and ability far exceeds Xinchen. Great. The main control room was filled with cheers. This boss is not as difficult to talk to as you said. People who usually don't get along with ZHU Kunjin couldn't help but speak to him. ZHU Kunjin didn't care and narrowed his eyes and said, you don't understand. This boss has always been most concerned about Xinchen. This time Xinchen suffered so much, he is holding his breath. Normally, I can't invite him, but he has been sitting here for a whole day. I was so scared that I didn't dare to speak loudly. ZHU Kunjin was not afraid to expose his shortcomings. If you hadn't said just now that this was originally Xingchen's mission, I guess he wouldn't move. Oh, this boss wants to help Xingchen guard it? Someone got the hint. Then he really loves him. He even helps with the mission. There should be an element of revenge. ZHU Kunjan snorted. Last time, he took action because he found Xingchen as an excuse and asked him for help. Oh, that's how it is. Someone sighed. If I had known earlier, wouldn't it have been better to ask the big guy to take action earlier? Do you think it's easy? Didn't you hear what Director ZHU said? It was Xingchen's accident that provoked him. Someone immediately refuted. It's not easy. ZHU Kunjan looked helpless. This big guy is capable and has a strong personality. I don't want to easily contact him. Everyone was speechless. ZHU Kunjan, although he was often shameless and unpleasant, but on the surface he always smiled and didn't offend anyone. You can't tell who he likes and who he hates in his heart. Like a stainless steel bowl that slips and doesn't leave anything. The fact that he can make him say that he doesn't want to contact someone shows the big guy's personality. Everyone was still discussing here, and the picture on the big screen switched. A young man in a white t-shirt and beige trousers flashed in front of the camera. Then, that can't be the big guy? Everyone who saw it was a little unbelievable. It looks like his face is particularly young. But who else can fly to the camera position dozens of meters high except the big guy? It's him. ZHU Kunjan smiled lightly. I said he will be there soon, right? Not only soon, it took less than 2 minutes. The camera quickly switched and quickly chased the young man in white. This time, he didn't even step on the flying sword. Silently rushing into the middle of the insects in the sky, the insects fell down wherever he passed, leaving a large gap behind. The Western Provincial Defense Force was still struggling, and suddenly, the enemy disappeared. The insect corpses fell in the sky, and they dodged in a hurry to avoid being killed by falling objects from the sky. The big-headed soldiers peeked in the bunker, only to see the back of Man in White, who caught up with the big centipede and then disappeared. What's going on? Everyone looked at each other. Are they hallucinating? Why do they see someone flying in the sky? I told you there is an immortal, right? You don't believe me. A new recruit jumped out and shouted, it's that one, the Sword Immortal in Zhugang. Sword Immortal, you bastard. His squad leader kicked the overexcited guy in the buttocks. You recognized him, just by looking at his back. The new recruit rubbed his buttocks and laughed. Who else could it be? Look at these wounds on the ground. Don't they look like they were cut by a sword? Are swords cut? I told you to read more. The squad leader raised his hand to hit him, but the other party dodged with a smile. He sighed in his heart. Although he was tough on the outside, he also had doubts in his heart. What kind of attack could make the insects in the sky fall like rain, die all over the ground, and separate their bodies? Even if Xingchen came, he couldn't do it to this extent, right? Could there really be an immortal? The captain quickly asked people to pick up the palm of the flyman and the energy gun, and then divide the work to clean up the battlefield. Attention, all teams, support is coming from above. Pay attention to hide, clean up the battlefield, and collect the fly hands and energy guns. At this time, the voice of the commander-in-chief of the Western Province Military Headquarters came from the headset. Everyone who was looking down to pick up the corpse couldn't help but look up at the empty sky. Even the centipede in the distance had disappeared. It felt that this notice came a little late. Le Zheng Yuanqing was angry. After a day of hard work, I reinstalled the computer. I used the backup I had reinstalled a few years ago. When I opened the browser, I found that the cloud collection was still from a few years ago. The browser version I used was relatively old, and because the function was still usable, it had not been updated. In the previous few reinstalls, I logged into the account and the favorites came out by themselves. This time, I don't know why, but it just couldn't be refreshed. After uninstalling, I reinstalled and logged in again, but there was nothing at all. I checked again, and the favorites backup was on the C drive. Now, I have lost the collection labels for 3.5 years. 3 years ago, I reinstalled the computer and lost a hard drive of files. The embroidery patterns and other out-of-print materials that I bought with money were all gone. Now the labels of the webpage favorites don't seem to be a big deal, but all the traces I saved in the past few years are gone. The information I found before and some of the network disks I saved are all there. I have always saved this browser to my cloud collection. I have never reinstalled it, and I have never paid attention to it. I did not expect it. There is nothing I can do about it. I have been using this browser when I use my computer. Later, many functions did not work well. I did not change the browser, so I have been using the old version instead of the new version. Now it seems that it is time to change. Function is the core of the product. I'm in a bad mood. I do not want to write. I feel like I have lost a lot, but I also feel like I have not lost anything. Chapter 596. Organisms with mechanical structures. Lin Yuenking's movements were so relaxed that it made a strong contrast for the people who were just fighting hard for Langsing in front of the big screen. This guy must not be a human, right? Except for H country. Everyone else had this question in their heads. Then, they hurriedly recalled and were glad that the relationship with H country was not too strained. Then they hurriedly asked for help, hoping that such a strong guy would come to their territory next and solve their crisis. Lin Yuenking was powerful, but after all, he was only one person. After entering the huge centipede, he also spent a lot of effort to disintegrate the opponent. This scene was really ugly, mixed with various mucous tissues that were hard to explain, and mechanical parts flew everywhere. It would take a lot of effort to clean it up. But such a big problem has been solved, and it is impossible for anyone to find fault. Looking at the big boss in white clothes floating in the air, the eyes of the control room were all focused on ZHU Kunjin. ZHU Kunjin was gritted his teeth and thought about what to say to make it easier for the eldest brother to go to the next international aid point, but he took the initiative to speak. Anything else? ZHU Kunjin hurriedly reported the prepared coordinates, but then he remembered that the eldest brother only brought a communication headset and seemed to not recognize the coordinates. He also hurriedly reported the direction and distance, ready to give him verbal navigation when the time came. Lin Yuenking turned around and walked away without hesitation. He was really determined to replace Xingqian to work. The person in charge of the armaments kept staring at ZHU Kunjin with an embarrassed look, asking him to help speak for him. ZHU Kunjin could only ask nervously, "Eldest brother, if possible, can you try to keep the body of the centipede intact? We want to use it for a search later." As expected, there was no response from the other side. "What's up? Did the big brother hear it?" the person in charge of the armaments asked nervously. "I definitely heard it," ZHU Kunjin said in time when he saw the other party's happy expression, "but it's hard to say whether they will do it or not." The armament leader's shoulders slumped, and he was soon relieved. "Yes, in this case, the first priority is to be able to preserve it. How can we ask for so much? Speaking of which, this big centipede is different from the previous insects or aircraft. What kind of species is it?" Someone couldn't help but ask. In the past, aircraft would only start to release Zerg after entering the atmosphere. They judged that these Zerg also need air to survive. But now, this group of big centipedes released by Grow directly swam into the atmosphere from space in this biological form. This is completely contrary to their previous judgment. If the alien Zerg can survive without air, then the danger level of Langsing is difficult to estimate. Looking at the broken structures, such centipedes may be organisms used as spacecraft. The armament leader carefully studied the debris on the ground. It has biological nature and a mechanical structure inside. It can be used as a spaceship. It's a complex. Although this sounds ridiculous, we should always make bold assumptions about unknown science. Is this possible? Most people find it hard to imagine. Why not? The general manager has a clear mind. Isn't Xingqian a comprehensive organism? Everyone thought about it, and it was right. She has the biological characteristics of Langsing people and a special Mecha structure. Isn't Mecha also a mechanical form? Everyone still remembers the scene of Xingqian lying on the ground when Apollo sent people back. Although the internal organs are fresh and no different from those of Langsing people, the exposed bones are the same as those of mechas, which are white metals shining with 7 colors. Although it is not certain what the bones are like when Xingqian is in her original form, it is obvious that when she is in Mecha mode, the internal bones are all metallized. The other Mecha man should be in the same situation. So 800 named her biological armor, which is very consistent with the actual state of Mecha. Since the mechas who were transformed by unknown alien factors can be like this, it is not surprising that the centipedes, which are originally alien insects, have similar situations, right? Yes, stars can breathe in an airless environment and can move directly in space. Many people reacted. Not only mechas, but also the world tree. Isn't it the same? Wang Fengfeng said. In the information room, everyone's eyes were focused on him. According to the ugly woman, the world tree is a server, and we have indeed obtained a lot of advanced scientific and technological knowledge from its interior. Wang Fengfeng talked freely, but its form is a real tree. Although the leaves are a bit beyond the scope, it can take root in the ground and form a planetary network, but it also has the unique growth function of a living organism. Isn't it the same principle? The world tree is called a tree, but no one regards it as an ordinary tree. It stores and accumulates energy and knowledge, and can also grow on its own. Isn't this the instinct of living things? Zhu Kunjin smiled bitterly and shook his head. We are obviously too ignorant to use our current knowledge to measure high-dimensional civilizations. Perhaps to some extent, whether it is biological or mechanical, it is a state where everything can blend together. Everyone couldn't imagine that scene, but they felt that the possibility was completely possible. It's like the space jump on Langsing is still only in the unverified theoretical stage, but Gro has easily achieved it. On the big screen, Hua Province and Sijiu City are fighting fiercely. Most other countries are struggling to support and have suffered heavy losses. The eldest brother just arrived at the first rescue point and leisurely displayed his magical powers. The general looked at the signal sent back by the radio telescope and told Zhu Kunjin, there is also an attack point on the African grassland. If the boss asks again, you should arrange it there first. Understood. Zhu Kunjin responded directly. The general looked at his subordinates who were discussing their own affairs and raised his hand. Well, everyone, while it's still relatively stable, let's make some emergency adjustments and temporary plans for the new content we just discussed. On Langsing, the attack and defense were in full swing. Almost all the people in power were watching the battle situation, and no one dared to take it lightly. On Gro, it was also a mess. When they saw that Langsing was unable to resist, they were very proud for a while, until the method of using the energy gun was cracked. Isn't that equivalent to sending weapons to the other side? But all the centipedes have been transported into the interior of Langsing, and it is impossible for them to return because of this. In addition, there are only a few people who have mastered this method, and there are many fly people. Overall, the loss rate can be ignored. Fighting Z, there will always be losses. Until the Black Mecha appeared, they were in a short panic. Should we send more troops? Should we adjust the plan? These two mechas are a big problem. But the black mechas have crossed half of the broken star to start the attack, and the white mechas have not appeared. So one of them died, right? They were proud. Killing one can also be regarded as revenge for the previous failure. A small planet with only one Mecha man was nothing to be afraid of. It wasn't until that killer appeared again that Gro was really panicked. What to do? Send more troops or retreat? Thousands of miles high in the sky, there was another quarrel. Where there are people, there are disputes, just like aliens. Chapter 597, A Powerful Enemy. Just as Lezing Yuan was rushing to the African savannah, the radio telescope discovered something new. New UFOs have appeared in space. The space agency sent a message. They are of different sizes and there are many of them. Soon, the simulated positioning images and ripple capture images were projected onto the big screen. They were really all kinds of things, scattered in space like flowers from heaven. Is Gro anxious? Someone clapped his hands and shouted. Only when he was anxious would he launch a large-scale disorderly attack again, when the previous wave was still in a fierce battle, and no results were obtained. Looking at the large and small, densely packed UFOs in the sky, it felt like Gro had thrown out all his breath. If this is all its attacks, then we can see the end. The person who spoke was worried and relieved. Compared with the endless unknown attacks, throwing out all the backup plans like now actually made them feel relieved. Or maybe it's impatient to waste time with us, and wants to take heavy measures to catch them all in one fell swoop. Not everyone is optimistic. We had such a hard time dealing with the centipede wave. What should we do with so many in the sky? Yes, in the current situation, the two main control cities can only barely resist, and other places are already in a mess. No matter how powerful Lezing Yuan is, He is only one person, and it is impossible for him to solve various problems at the same time. If this large number of unidentified objects invade Lansing, will they still have the ability in time to resist? Everyone looked at the huge 5 on the big screen, and their hearts sank. Continue to detect and report the latest developments at any time. The general commander seemed not to be affected and ordered calmly. Notify all allies of the situation and let them mobilize all anti-aircraft weapons and ground forces that can be mobilized. If you shrink back and dare not fight at this time, you won't need it in the future. The people below took the order and did it with a solemn face. He ordered the Minister of Security again. Let the sea forces go out to prepare for war. Don't hide. General. The security chief hesitated. Our aircraft type has no chance of winning against those. The general looked at him coldly. If there is no chance of winning, why not go? Are we only fighting battles that we have a chance of winning? The security chief blushed. He didn't mean that. He just didn't want to make unnecessary sacrifices. Look at those children. The general gestured to him to look at the tragic scenes of various regions fighting against alien attacks on the big screen. How can they win? We can't just shrink back and wait for others to solve the problem with blood and tears and sit back and enjoy the fruits of their labor. The security chief blushed. Not to mention other places. The screens of the 4-9 city always show the casualties of Z soldiers. Their power level is too different from that of alien creatures. Even if they have unlocked the use of energy guns, they are still at a disadvantage overall. If it weren't for the Mecha team pulling them up, the situation would be even worse. Pangu kept chasing the big centipede and bombarding it. At this time, there was no need to worry about any infrastructure issues. The only thing that mattered was being able to shoot down the centipede. The outer shell of the centipede is hard, but the inside is not. Pangu kept looking for angles and aiming at the exit where the centipede was released. The first few shots were obviously effective, and no alien creatures came out of the black and grey smoking holes immediately. But the centipede was not stupid, and it twisted its body to prevent Pangu from aiming. Its twisting was irregular, and the missile's track system could not predict it. Pangu could only chase it and look for opportunities, hoping to wear it down bit by bit. Fortunately, Pangu had sufficient energy, and its huge body and platform characteristics made it invulnerable to ordinary attacks. It seemed good, but the trouble was still to come. The Mecha team looked fierce now, but there was still a problem of endurance that had not been solved. If the crisis was not resolved within this time limit, everything would be in vain. As more and more insect corpses occupied the ground, the original ground armored missile vehicle could not move as flexibly as Pangu, and could only predict the position by the main control, and drive to the place where the centipede might pass by in advance. The centipede did not follow the routine at all, and most of the time it was a waste of time. Sometimes, even if you waited, it was still not easy to aim at the opening on the side of its moving body from the ground. So the fighter formations all went to reload their ammunition. After all, it was easier for them to aim from the air. But there were many bugs in the air. The fighters had to avoid all kinds of interference and hit the target, which was not easy. Countless fighters crashed, and some pilots died on the spot, and some were attacked by bugs during parachuting. The battle on land was so bad, and the sea forces had hardly been dispatched. Just because they couldn't defeat the enemy and wanted to preserve their capabilities, they avoided it. But would the aliens let them go? Someone had to bear the attack on Lansing. Even if the sea forces successfully avoided it, they would still be borne by the people on land in the end. If Gro really launched a general attack, no matter what the reason was, with such a big momentum, he definitely didn't want to leave them well. At this moment, everyone on Lansing was an ally, and no one could escape. When Lansing fell into dire straits, what was the point of keeping the ship, the plane, and the people? Xingchen, a girl, could have escaped with her own ability, but she repeatedly blocked them, and has not regained consciousness yet. But at this time, he only thought about preservation. Many thoughts flashed through the minister's mind in an instant. He was ashamed of his thoughts. His face was red, as if it was about to bleed, and he went down to make arrangements without saying a word. ZHU Kunjin. The chief looked at the big screen again and waved his hand. ZHU Kunjin knew what he was going to say and responded in advance. The people have been dispersed. A separate group of people was sent to support the main control, and they should arrive soon. But if the personnel are dispersed, the ability will also be dispersed at that time, right? Someone raised a question. Well, this time we dispersed, not for resistance, but just for defense. ZHU Kunjin replied. I collected the defense magic weapons in the institute and asked people to take them to the gathering places in various cities. Such a dense attack cannot be aimed at large cities such as Sajiacheng, Gao or Zhugang. It's just a pity that the number of magic weapons is limited. I can only let them go to places where there are many people and there is no way to preserve everyone. I can only hope that everyone is lucky. The main control room was silent for a few seconds. Each country has a large population, and there are countless cities of all sizes. It is indeed unrealistic to say that all of them can be taken care of. Fortunately, in recent years, a large number of people have poured into developed cities to work in the cities, and only a few people remain in the towns and villages. Many villages and even small county towns have been abandoned. After collective refuge, most people hid underground, and those who lived in the surrounding areas also looked for opportunities to bring people back to hide. Villages that really had no conditions also used large broadcasts to notify people to hide in cellars or mountains. However, due to objective conditions, the area was too wide, the number of magic tools was limited, and other factors, it was inevitable that not all could be protected. No one wanted to experience this kind of abandonment, but they did what they could. There were too many helplessness in life, and they could not decide. The general's voice was a little hoarse. How strong is a defense magic weapon? Take the 49th city as an example. A defense shield can be raised within the 4th ring to resist external attacks. ZHU Kunjin replied, but how long it can resist depends on the strength of the opponent's attack. According to the current attack strength? Someone asked. The big centipede has not shown its attacking ability yet. If it follows the attack of the insects below, it won't be a problem to hold on until the barrier is deployed. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. ZHU Kunjin added, but I don't think those broken things in the sky will still use insects to attack. They are all flying machines, so they should also have large firepower equipment, right? If they want to attack by force. Yes, there is no reason to think that Grodd doesn't have large caliber R weapons. He blew himself up before. Can the defense withstand the power of Z explosion? Someone asked hurriedly. It should be possible. ZHU Kunjin was not particularly sure. The power was not small that time, but no one was at the scene to estimate the specific situation. Even if it can be defended, it will definitely be useless after the explosion. There was a lot of discussion in the control room. If the group in the sky uses R weapons, or even Z explosions, what should they do? If it goes according to the original plan, there will be new mechas in the big fight. At least 5 mechas will appear together. They fought fiercely in the second volume, but they can be used here. Wasn't it impossible to write at that time? The Mecha couldn't come out, so the combat effectiveness was weakened, and I left Lin Fan to rest. I thought you might get annoyed by the long drag later, so I put all the attacks together and prepared to finish it early. Hehe, that's it. So it looks lame at the moment. Then again, if there was no suspense, then there would be no tension, right? Wow, did I write the right way by accident? Hahaha. Chapter 598, Surprise on the Grassland. Lezing King went to 2 places successively, so when he arrived at the African savannah, there were insects everywhere in the air, as rampant as a swarm of wasps. Fortunately, the African savannah was originally empty, and the animals on the ground had long been frightened by the noise and fled everywhere. So although it looked scary, it had not caused any actual harm. Looking at the big centipede swaying left and right in the air and spreading seeds everywhere, Lezing King frowned and rushed towards the nearest scourge. The flies and scorpions below were not worth mentioning to him, but the trouble was the centipede. Fortunately, he came. If it was Lin Fan, it would be really tricky. The eldest brother was distracted for a moment and suddenly felt a huge energy fluctuation behind him. He was so shocked that he turned around and retreated, and in the blink of an eye he floated 100 meters away. Looking closely, the sky that was dark just now was clear and blue. If he hadn't been deeply involved in it just now, if it were an ordinary person, he might really doubt his life. He thought for a moment and inspected several suspicious piles of tall grass. Sure enough, a familiar black dot was found. It was unexpected, but also reasonable. Lezing Yuanking did not dare to be arrogant. He respectfully descended to a distance of dozens of meters from the other party and walked over step by step. 1,000-year-old master. Lezing Yuanking concealed his anger and bowed his head to greet him. The 1,000-year-old master, who was nowhere to be found by the special office, was sitting in the grass, licking his paw. Hearing the familiar name, it looked up. "It's you, kid." It licked it twice nonchalantly before putting down its paw and asked leisurely, "Why are you here?" Lezing Yuanking was embarrassed to stand on the high position all the time, so he sat down cross-legged and briefly explained the situation. "So that's it." The 1,000-year-old master's expression did not change. "No wonder I encountered it once a few days ago, and I was wondering, what the hell? Did you encounter it a few days ago?" Lezing Yuanking was called out by ZHU Kunjin after Lin Fan was injured, and he didn't know what happened before. Yes, it was pitch black and made a piercing sound. It was really disturbing, so I swallowed it in one gulp. The little black cat sat obediently, but said scary words. "You swallowed those just now?" Although Lezing Yuanking knew how powerful the big monster was, he couldn't help but look at its small belly twice. These alien creatures, are they hard to digest? Do you have other plans? I can spit them out again. The 1,000-year-old master was straightforward and kind. Lezing Yuanking waved his hands quickly. "I don't need them, but ZHU Kunjin seems to be useful. You should take some trouble and help him take them back." As soon as ZHU Kunjin was mentioned, ZHU Kunjin's voice came from the headset. "Big brother, the space agency said that the telescope suddenly couldn't observe the alien creatures on your side. Can I ask if you are still normal now? This is the second time that the alien creatures on the African grasslands have suddenly disappeared. The space agency suspects that there is a special magnetic field or hyperspace structure on the grasslands. Otherwise, why do they disappear one by one? Or disappear in seconds? I don't know if it's normal." Lezing Yuanking said honestly, "I met the 1,000-year-old master." "Oh, the 1,000-year-old master." ZHU Kunjin wanted to say that it was normal for the 1,000-year-old master to be here. Suddenly, he realized what he heard and screamed with wide eyes, "1,000-year-old master?" Lezing Yuanking was so annoyed that he pulled out his headphones. Under the quiet gaze of the 1,000-year-old master, he put them back to his ears. Over there, ZHU Kunjin was almost going crazy. "Big brother, can I say a few words to the 1,000-year-old master?" After Lezing Yuanking conveyed the message, he saw that the little black cat did not refuse or move, and he worked hard to put the headphones on the cat's ears. "1,000-year-old master? Is the 1,000-year-old master here?" ZHU Kunjin kept chattering. "I'm here." These two simple words instantly broke ZHU Kunjin's defense. "1,000-year-old master, we have been looking for you so hard." The voice was aggrieved and crying. The little black cat turned his head suspiciously and looked at Lezing Yuanking. The impression it had of ZHU was that he was smiling all day long, but that was not the case. "Woo woo woo," the cat on the other side began to sob. "Master, when you were away, we were bullied terribly. We couldn't find anyone to help us." The little black cat looked at Lezing Yuanking again. Lezing Yuanking had no choice but to reveal his suppressed anger, saying that he had no other choice. "We sent you so many messages, but you didn't reply. Woo woo woo. I thought I would never have the chance to see you again." Lezing Yuanking listened to ZHU Kunjin singing and talking performance with a cold face, and Master Kyansu obviously fell for it. It raised its little paw to touch the small golden bell on its neck, and a small black box fell to the ground. The red light on it kept flashing, and it looked like it would make people want to turn it off quickly. Master Kyansu turned the box over, revealing the LCD screen, and pressed it with his paw. The screen lit up, and countless messages piled up. Lezing Yuanking glanced at them, and they were all messages from the Special Affairs Office asking for help. "I didn't see it." Black Cat raised his eyebrows and flipped through the information quickly. "How long has this thing been in my pocket? I have never used it properly. Who would remember to look at it?" Master Kaiensu, these bastards took advantage of your absence and bullied us to death. ZHU Kunjin started to howl again. The little Lin Fan you saw last time was beaten to a pulp and is still not awake. Who is little Lin Fan? Black Cat looked up at the young man next to him, and Lezing Yuanking hurriedly explained in a low voice. Your apprentice? Master Kaiensu is a forgetful person and has long forgotten Lin Fan. After hearing this, he remembered that there was such a girl. No, I just taught her for a few days. Lezing Yuanking shook his head to deny. It's just that I have some karma with her, so I fought for her and vented my anger by the way. Black Cat nodded and said to the headset, what's the situation now? What do you want? Tell me in detail. ZHU Kunjin was overjoyed and asked Master Kaiensu to find his own headphones and plug them in first. Senior brother can't delay any longer. He must go to the next place to provide support, as there are already many people suffering over there. Lezing Yuanking respectfully helped the little black cat put in the earplugs, and then he soared into the air, his face full of anger. His anger value was not released here, so he would continue in the next place. After ZHU Kunjin discussed the follow-up arrangements with Lord Kaiensu, he finally breathed a sigh of relief. With the help of such a big man, the chances of winning seemed to be strengthened. When he looked up, everyone in the control room looked at him with strange eyes. Director ZHU's acting is really good. People who used to have a bad relationship with ZHU Kunjin couldn't help but mock him. I thought you could only laugh, but it turns out that you are also extraordinary when you cry. Hey, I'm sorry to make you laugh. ZHU Kunjin wiped the tears from the corners of his eyes without caring, and replied with a smile, whether it's crying or laughing, it's all for the G family. This big man can help me, so I can lie on the ground and roll around. The other party immediately stopped. ZHU Kunjin is such a shameless guy. But deep down, I agree with what he said. With such a powerful boss joining, if it were them, what would they not want to give up? Not to mention their shame. Things in the sky are slowly falling, and they have gained a big helper. The situation, can it change from now on? Did anyone guess it? It's Master Kaiensu, otherwise why would I write about him? It's used here. I was blinded again yesterday afternoon. I changed my membership specifically, but the problematic parts that were prompted made me want to laugh. Just fight with yourself, and also fight with these. Because of this, the content of the second volume was completely changed. Yabao said before that my theme was too slow. Actually, it wasn't. In the first volume, Lin Fan fought with himself, and the second volume was originally a fight between various mechas. The original plan was to have 5 mechas, and the third volume was a fight with aliens. In fact, there was no deviation. It was still a gradual process, but it was changed in the middle, giving people the feeling that the battle was very late. And because there are not enough mechas, they are always at a disadvantage when fighting aliens, as you can see. In short, many things have been changed, and it is not smooth. I don't want to talk. I'm powerless. What did I write and I was blacklisted? I have tried very hard to avoid changing words. What is it? I'm irritated, and I have no mood and motivation. Chapter 599. Master Chitos comes to help. The 1000-year-old master rushed all the way to Country H. He solved all the threats he encountered on the way. He learned from the call with ZHU Kunjin that the most important thing now is the barrier of the ugly woman. The ugly woman. He had heard of her, and she was said to be an ancient god. But she had nothing to do with him, and he had never thought of contacting her. But now, it seems that he has to go there. The 1000-year-old master did not have the naive idea of saving the world with the power of a cat. If those things had not invaded his temporary residence and made him uncomfortable, he might not have taken action. In the eyes of the 1000-year-old master, whether it is a human, an animal, or an alien, they are all living beings, and there is no difference. But the special office has a feeling of support for him, and Langsing is the place where he has lived for a long time. He can't just watch it. In addition, Lin Fan was injured. He vaguely remembered that he had met that child once and had a good impression of her. In addition, that child is that boy's apprentice. Don't look at him denying it. Humans are a species that always say one thing and mean another, and are very awkward. Why should he care if he is not his disciple? Doesn't he care if he comes out to vent his anger? Don't think it doesn't know that boy practices the way of angry sword, and accumulating anger is the source of practice. Forget it. Young people are so stubborn. Don't expose him. As Master Kaiensu was speeding, various thoughts flashed through his mind. Back in the territory of H country, I don't know if it has preconceived notions. It feels that everything it sees is different from before, empty and revealing a dead silence. It doesn't like this. Although it always avoids people, it hopes that the world is still lively. If it is the only one in the world. Master Kaiensu shook his head, shook off the thoughts in his head, and continued to accelerate. The ugly woman's cave is not difficult to find, and the remaining personnel of the Special Affairs Office have been waiting outside the cave. In the winter of December, the sunshine after 10 o'clock in the morning is still good. At least it is more comfortable than underground. They were just chatting casually, speculating what the 1,000-year-old master, whom they had never met, looked like, when suddenly a black shadow flashed past them and went straight into the cave, bringing with it a gust of wind. Several people covered their faces with their hands and held onto the door of the cave to avoid falling. After standing up straight, the wind and the black shadow seemed like their illusions. Just now, someone hesitated. Is that so? Another person was not sure either. Jin Sichin's voice came from the headset. Attention, all units, the 1,000-year-old master has arrived at the entrance of the Nyangnyang cave. Pay attention to the deployment of your own personnel. That's right. At this moment, everyone was finally sure. It was just a flash, and no one could see the true face of the 1,000-year-old master. And the 1,000-year-old master finally stopped when he saw Jin Sichin standing outside the cave. It came to help, not to fight. It still knew basic courtesy when visiting someone else's cave for the first time. 1,000-year-old master? Even though ZHU Kunjin had already told Jin Sichin that the 1,000-year-old master was a little black cat. But when he saw it appear out of thin air, he was still very surprised. Is this little cute thing that looks like a toy the second boss of the Special Affairs Office? Looking at the small golden dumbbell hanging around its neck, Jin Sichin rarely felt the difference in cognition. He knew in his heart that it was powerful, but his eyes didn't believe it. Lord Kaiensu knew that Jin Sichin was from the Special Affairs Office, and he sat at the door and nodded to him gently. Please inform the ugly lady for me. Since seeing Lin Fan's injury, the ugly lady has been sitting cross-legged beside the world tree, tied to the trunk with her hair and motionless. Jin Sichin privately wondered if she was giving birth to the energy of the world tree, or converting her own energy into the world tree. But he didn't dare to ask, just quietly standing by to prevent the ugly lady from having any special needs. He had already received ZHU Kunjin's notification that Lord Kaiensu was coming, and told the ugly lady. The ugly lady didn't respond. According to Jin Sichin's understanding of her, she should have known about it and didn't refuse. So after Kaiensu came, he led the way directly in front, and brought the cat in. On the way, he did not forget to send a message to his colleagues in the cave and ZHU Kunjin who was waiting at the Special Affairs Office. My queen, the 1,000-year-old master has arrived. Jin Sichin did not dare to bring the cat directly to the ugly woman. He was not so stupid. Instead, he stood outside the running water, facing the ugly woman on the island across a not narrow waterway. This was the first time that the 1,000-year-old master came to the ugly woman cave. It did not feel new to it until it entered the cave and saw the green leaves covering the dome. The small cat eyes could not help but enlarge. Is this the world tree? The cat had lived for so long, and this was the first time it had seen this thing. Look at the ugly woman again. Ordinary people could not see it, but it knew it at a glance. The aura of the ugly woman and the world tree are completely the same. I didn't expect that there was such a powerful person hidden underground. The ugly woman finally opened her eyes and turned to look at the kitten by the water. I heard that you can help me. At this time, the ugly woman returned to the faint goddess look at the beginning. The little black cat nodded. I heard that the world tree lacks energy, so it has been unable to open the barrier. That's right. The ugly woman turned around and looked at the trunk intently. It lacks energy, but not all energy can be integrated into it. The energy of the world tree was left by Nuwa. If it weren't for the passage of time and the changes in the world, the sons of gods left by Nuwa should have the same source as the energy of the world tree. But thousands of years have passed, and the sons of gods have all died. Their descendants have been diluted by blood, and the thin energy can be almost ignored. Now on Langsing, the only ones who can share the energy of the world tree are her and the dead girl. The dead girl has a lot of good energy, but if I guess correctly, it has all been converted by lightning, and the girl may not be able to purify it. Besides, the girl is like that, and the energy of the world tree in her body can help her recover soon. If it is really extracted, forget it. Your Highness may not know, the little cat said. Although I was not born in ancient times, I'm not much older than your Highness. The ugly woman turned her head suddenly, her pupils erected. What did you say, Your Highness? Please allow me to report. The 1,000-year-old man seemed not to feel the pressure from the ugly woman, and continued to talk about his birth year. So, from the perspective of blood energy, I should be the descendant of a divine beast. The ugly woman looked at the petite black cat, and the divine beasts left by Noah flashed through her mind. Is there such a little black cat? It seems not. By the way, the divine beasts seem to be able to change their shapes. The ugly woman looked at the little 1,000-year-old man carefully again, and finally found the corresponding image in her mind. Oh, she sighed. So you are the descendant of the sky-swallowing beast. Your Majesty has a keen eye. The little black cat laughed. No one has mentioned this name for many years. The ugly woman smiled faintly. If that's the case, you can really help. Come here. The 1,000-year-old kitten walked obediently along the corridor bridge to the side of the ugly woman, and followed her instructions. Seeing that everything was going well for them, Jin Sichin hid in a hidden place, to send a message to Zhu Kunjin. The sudden surprise made everyone explode. Master Kaiensu is not a black cat, but a descendant of an ancient mythical beast, also a mythical beast. The ugly woman and the others belong to the first generation, and Kaiensu is the second generation. Chapter 600, Giant Beast Devours the Sky. What is the sky-swallowing beast? After receiving the news, everyone immediately started searching. As a result, they only found a virtual character in a fairy tale drama, and many vague prototype guesses. This is all the imagination of the film and television production staff. The real sky-swallowing beast should not look like this. Wang Fengfeng saw that everyone was silent about the virtual image on the screen, so he spoke up. The sky-swallowing beast in that film seems to be a popular character, but in terms of image, it is indeed shaped as a villain. Probably just to create a contrast. Such an image has nothing to do with their lovely 1,000-year-old cat. The sky-swallowing beast, can it swallow the sky and devour the earth? A question came from the main control. It sounds powerful. Zhu Kunjin waved his hand and asked someone to remove the film and television pictures and continued to stare at the large amount of search content. What you are talking about is a TV drama setting. In fact, we haven't even found relevant records in the classic of mountains and seas. If it weren't for their conversation this time, no one would know that Master Kaiensu is a heaven-swallowing beast. The Special Affairs Office is knowledgeable and strong, but after all, it is limited by knowledge. Just knowing more than ordinary people does not mean that everything is clear. But no matter what, since this heaven-swallowing beast is of the same origin as the world tree, then, can the barrier be deployed in advance? Someone made a bold guess. Although Jin Sichin did not send a definite message, everyone almost believed that the heaven-swallowing beast went to find the ugly woman in order to contribute energy to the world tree. Of course, this is indeed the case. It's just that they can't figure out the short-end time. In the evening, Master Kaiensu politely said goodbye to the ugly woman and disappeared outside the ugly woman's cave. Jin Sichin looked at the ugly woman sitting cross-legged, then looked up at the dome, covered with green leaves on the top. I don't know if it's a psychological effect, but I always feel that the energy seems to be more abundant than before. Zhu Kunjin carefully asked Master Kaiensu about the previous events. Yes, it has been transmitted. The black cat Kaiensu replied nonchalantly. From the sound, it seemed that there was not much loss. Everyone was delighted. Zhu Kunjin asked again. Then do you know when the barrier will be opened in advance? You have to ask the queen. How can I know? The black cat ran in the air, and the wind passed by it. There was no noise coming out of the microphone. ZHU Kunjin knew that this ancestor was not a patient person, so he quickly changed the topic and asked it to support the battle. Master Kaiensu snorted lightly, and then there was no movement. Did it respond or not? The people at the control center couldn't figure out the situation, and their hearts were hanging in the air. Supposed, ZHU Kunjin said happily, since Master Kaiensu has taken action, he will not give up halfway. Then, he contacted Jin Sichin again. After learning that the female clan was in a state that could not be disturbed, he conveyed it to everyone in the control room. In short, it should be certain that it will be ahead of schedule. He scratched his head. We just have to do our best to do the things at hand. Everyone looked at the countdown number on the screen, which was still a huge 5. Anxious but helpless, they could only fight and wait as ZHU Kunjin said. I hope good luck will come soon. When it was getting dark, the energy of the Mecha team in Sigio City had been exhausted. They had to retreat underground one after another under the cover of the ground crew. Compared with other things, their mechas were a major resource. The fragmented Zergs were almost consumed, and the big centipede was still advancing tenaciously with black smoke. Although Pangu had almost destroyed its exit, it was impossible to send down the insect soldiers. But such a large body was rampant in the air, and the threat still existed. Pangu kept biting the centipede, but facing the opponent's solid defense, he knew he could do nothing. The support force of the Special Affairs Office had long made up for the lack of the Mecha team, and all kinds of visually stunning superpowers were launched at the same time, but it was like scratching an itch for the big centipede. Fortunately, it has a very good group attack effect on other insect soldiers, so it is not a waste of effort. Several of Zaohi's cards have run out of energy. He spent several days charging, but now he can only slightly intercept the opponent. The defense of the big centipede is too high. Zaohi decided that when he has the chance, he must write this centipede into the card. Are there no more usable cards? Zuping asked when he saw the young man's face full of indignation. Yes, Zaohi said in a low tone, and folded the useless cards down, revealing the ones at the bottom. There are also Toad cards and Hydra cards. I wanted to keep them for the next wave of attacks. Zuping looked up and saw the descending foreign objects in the darkening clouds. There were already 3 in the area he saw with his naked eyes, and they were of different sizes. When they set out, they had already received news of a new round of attacks from the Special Affairs Office. He also told Zaohi not to send out all the cards, but to keep some power to deal with the next wave of attacks. Unexpectedly, the plan could not keep up with the changes. All the first cards were thrown away, and the centipede was not taken down. Feeling the vibration caused by Pangu's running, Zuping narrowed his eyes. Although the centipede is difficult to break through, it has not shown greater attack power at present, but the ones above are not necessarily the case. Once Zaohi's card is issued, it will enter the consumption countdown. It can be taken back halfway, but the cards with insufficient energy cannot be released again, unless Zaohi's energy is forcibly overdrawn. Recently, in order to charge the cards, Zaohi has not rested day and night. Where can he have extra energy to overdraw them? What if the centipede is not dealt with, and the ones above are more lethal? There is really a wolf in front and a tiger behind. Where is the star card? Zuping wanted to smoke, rubbed his 2 fingers together, and held back. Zaohi took out the star card from his pocket and put it on the top. The star card is still short of energy, and it can't be used now. The colorful card seemed to be covered with a layer of dust, and the star sample that was originally vivid on the paper became flat. The star card has more energy than the others, so I can only put it last. Although Zaohi has not fought in the past few days, the continuous overdraft of energy has made his body very depleted. Now that he is on the field again, the card does not work as well as the first time, which has a great psychological impact on him. Before, he thought he was a chosen hero, but now he is a little depressed. Brother Zu, what should I do now? He asked Zuping for help exhaustedly. These 2 cards are used to fight centipedes, so let's wait until later. The attack power of the Hydra and the Big Toad is also one of the best among the cards. Similarly, once they are used up, it is not so easy for him to recharge and use them again. In addition, he has been in a stage of energy deficit recently, so these cards are equivalent to disposable consumables. It is not known how fierce the attacks later will be. I heard that Grow launched a general attack, so it must not be too easy. Should these fierce cards really be put on the big centipede that does not seem to have any obvious damage and is just running around? Zooping pondered for a moment, pointed his finger at the toad card. Why not take it first? Before he finished speaking, a huge change occurred. A black giant beast that came out of nowhere stood on the top of a tall building, facing Pangu. Is it a friend or an enemy? The moment everyone was stunned, it opened its mouth. With a whoop, it easily swallowed the annoying centipede. The whole city of Sajia was silent. Then, the beast suddenly burped, scaring everyone to step back subconsciously. In the blink of an eye, the beast disappeared again, leaving everyone standing there in confusion. This sky-swallowing beast, I thought of it myself. I checked Baidu to see if there is any in the classic of mountains and seas, but I didn't expect to see this character in a TV series. It's really a coincidence I didn't watch that TV series because I feel uncomfortable with the male protagonist's hairline. ****. I didn't watch it at all, and I didn't know there was such a character in it. It's just the same name. There is no connection. Let me tell you about it. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.